Up here.
Would you lose? Would you gonna?
It's here. Can't be that hard.
Trying to keep you informed.
Maybe they're watching it.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, September 5th, 2017 regular council meeting for the City of Brook Park. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Scott.
Here.
Bergio.
Here.
Salvatore.
Here.
Troyer.
Here.
Powers. McDonald. Here. Mancini.
Here.
Would everyone please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Mancini?
thank you. Thank you for recognizing me. I'd like to make a motion to go out of regular order of business and go a little early today with our crowd and go to audience participation, if I may.
Is there support for the motion?
Chairman, which audience participation?
Which one is it? Is it the one on legislation on the agenda?
It'll
or-
be the last one. It'll
the
be
au-
audience participation pertaining to anything, whether on the agenda or anything.
So letter
city-
P?
Yes, letter P. Thank you.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion to go out of regular order of business to address letter P, remarks from the audience on any subject matter. It's been supported. Is there any discussion? Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Just wondering why you're interested in doing this?
Well, that's a really good question. We have a nice crowd here tonight for a beautiful August, summer, September time flying, September time, and maybe we'll get little things out of the way here, because it looks like some of them will probably want to speak, and we'll get that done, and we could get down to business. We did it a few weeks ago, and I really never really asked for this that much anyway, if I'm not mistaken, so, I mean, I'll leave it up to my colleagues, but I made the motion, so be it.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Mancini.
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
Powers. Troyer.
Yes.
Okay, we're out of the regular order of business. We'll go to item P on the agenda, which is remarks from the audience on any subject matter. Just briefly, I've gone through the rules before before we get into this. Just to give you a brief description, speakers need to address their comments to the chair, and we would recommend that you refer to the elected officials either by their title, try to avoid using their names. And we ask the speakers to please refrain from impugning any motives of the elected officials and please confine your remarks to legislative matters and city business. We ask the speakers to please refrain from personal attacks. It's not my intention to strictly enforce the rules upon speakers, but order and decorum needs to be followed. So if the chair asks the speaker to hold their remarks for a point of order or to give information, the speaker is asked to please stop speaking just in order to listen to the chair. So at this time, we'll open the microphone for the podium. And if anyone wants to talk, come up to the speaker and give your name and address for the record.
My name is Rob Slattery, 4396 West 62nd Street, Cleveland, Ohio, 44144. As many know, have been retained to investigate matters of council. It started in April.
Mr. Slattery, can you answer one question for information-wise? Are you going to be giving your report tonight?
This is a status update on the investigation.
Okay, are you working from notes or an outline or something like that?
I have an outline here. I did not print it out. This is not being submitted in writing. I'm here just to give
The reason I ask, if you're working from something that council could refer to, I would ask the clerk, make copies so that we can follow along as you're talking rather than having to take notes.
Well, this will be submitted to everybody after the fact. The way you guys normally conduct business is there's not a back and forth question and answer period, so.
Well, I
Once
understand
I'm
that.
done, this can be submitted in writing.
I understand that, Mr. Slattery, but what I'm saying is, you and I talked about this in July, and you were going to present us something so that we would have time to review it before the meeting.
Well, my report would be completed if I had all the information that I
And-
requested.
Right, and I understand, but what I'm saying is if there's something that you're going to be working off of that we would then be able to have in front of us so that we can watch it, I would think it would be more
I am not
productive.
prepared to submit this in writing at this time.
Okay,
I will
okay.
give an oral presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Slattery, that's all.
Thank you. Okay, first off, some of the things that were going on within city council started well before this council was seated. But I've broken them down in several different sections. First off, one of the original issues was the altered documents for legislation. I made several attempts to reach out to past councilperson McCormick about the documents. I left several messages at her home. I actually even contacted her criminal attorney with negative results and calls back. I interviewed council clerk Michelle Blazek. Michelle Blazek did state that she observed Julie McCormick seated at that typewriter with the documents. When Julie was finished, she handed Michelle the altered documents that were taken from Michelle's binder. Michelle stated that the changes to the council have made her job unbelievably difficult. And she stated that her main concern is making her retirement. She was blamed for the backlog in the minutes, which was another one of the issues, and that was caused, as you'll see throughout the other comments that have been made, by all of the meetings that were held in the change in the council rules. On 12/9/16, McCormick emailed President Astorino her resignation. And these are documents that I have here, and I will be presented to the council at a later date. On 12/13, there's an email from McCormick to Astorino asking about her pay for the month of December. 12/19/16, there's an email from Council President Astorino to past council member McCormick outlining charter language, and in the narrative of the email, it states that would limit the mayor's supreme authority. On 12/28, McCormick rescinded her resignation. The main question that comes from these documents is, why was the council president still conducting business with someone that resigned from council? So that remains to be answered. We'll go on to the next packet here. And it originally was from the law director to the clerk of court and the council president and all council members from the law director. And it's her request under section 17.06 of the Brook Park City Charter entitled Investigations, and it states, the mayor or council by majority vote may cause the affairs of any department or the conduct of any officer or employee of the city to be examined. The mayor or council has the power to compel the attendance of witnesses, the production of books, papers, and other evidence, and cause witnesses to be punished for contempt as conferred by law. Now, that was the original request from the law director about having an investigation. Obviously, the investigation was finally approved. On May 24th, I submitted a request to Council President Astorino, and I'll read it. Mr. Astorino, I respectfully request the council conduct a discussion and vote to compel certain witnesses, Councilman Powers and Councilman Troyer, to comply with the submitted request to be interviewed pursuant to the above listed section of city charter. That was emailed on May 24th at 12:31 a.m. And then on May 24th, 2017 at 8 a.m., the council president sent an email out to all council members stating, "This investigator seems to be approaching this matter in a way that was not intended. I believe this investigation was to be of an administrative nature. He appears to be taking a prosecutorial approach. There was never any discussion among all council members of this investigation being based on the city charter provisions. I am waiting for him to identify the specific provision. I believe he is operating outside his authority and not conducting the investigation we are seeking. I believe if council is going to allow him to proceed down this path, council also needs to consider providing authorization to all members of council to obtain legal representation. This matter needs to be discussed at the next meeting before we ask to proceed further. I think we should consider suspending the investigation until it becomes clear to the investigator what authority he has in this matter. Please let me know your thoughts on this matter. I would prefer responses in writing form with a reply so all can see your opinion." Now, I don't understand, I'm not going to ask questions, but to go further into your involvement with this, Mr. Astorino, there's a current request for information, public records request for a bunch of private citizens' information, but that's actually not the first time you did this. On June 21st of this year, you sent to the mayor, the law director, and myself, and it says, under the Ohio Public Records Act, I am making this request for any and all notes, emails, and phone messages by the three of you have had been compiled through June 22nd of 17 in this ongoing investigation of Brook Park City Council. I'm also requesting any and all tape recordings that any of the three of you have compiled during that investigation. I am also seeking any and all names of individuals the mayor, law director, or Rob Slattery has been in contact with pertaining to this investigation. This list of names will also include any private citizens that have been in contact with the three of you. In addition, the list of names of private citizens, I am requesting an identification of what was the involvement of the private citizen and what they specifically contacted you about. Now, that goes on, and I have a copy of the August 23rd request you submitted. Now, going into the next section, I mean, that just raises concerns for me, great concerns. But like I stated earlier, the motions of what is going on in the current status of the board started a long time ago. It started well before this council was seated, like I stated. There was issues involved with the Secure Our Safety PAC. On June 15th, 2015, a $3,100 check was issued to the PAC for Mr. and Mrs. Astorino. On March 2nd, 2015, a lawsuit...
Mr. Slattery, you were hired to investigate council actions. That's outside of council actions.
I beg to differ. This
Well,
goes...
you can beg to differ all you want.
This legislative board, members of it attempted to get city funds to cover the legal fees of that PAC, which I think pulls it right in.
This is, you came here saying you were going to update this on the council investigation.
I'm updating the council as well as the public.
I
who
understand what you're doing, but
deserve to
you
know
were
this.
hired to, to hire.
I'm doing
an
the job that
investiga-
I believe I was
No,
hired to do.
You're investigating private citizens and their actions under the SOS. That has nothing.
No, I'm not.
That has nothing
No,
to do with council.
if you allow me to continue, you're not a private citizen, number one. You're seated on this as a council president, and you're involved in this investigation, and if you'd let me
Now,
continue.
Mr. Slattery, the SOS was in 2014.
I understand
I
that.
was not on council until 2016.
But you had a financial tie to it, and you were involved in trying to gain funds from the city to cover the legal fees.
That's your status update. That's not a report that you're giving right now.
Well, it's facts that these people have the right to know.
No, you were hired to do an investigation, present a report to council,
Well,
and
if
we would do that.
I'm
What you're
attempting to
doing
do
now-
that.
what you're
I'm
doing now-
attempting to do that.
You are not attempting to do that. You are
well-
attempting to just sit there and give us your notes
Not
without the
notes.
opportunity.
These are documents. This is proof. There's proof. These are facts. This isn't something I just pulled out of the air. Okay, I can show you. I have a copy of the $3,100 check. I have copies of emails.
And anything that happened in 2014, 2015, unless it was an action by a council person, that was a seated council person at that time.
If you'd allow me to continue, we'll get into your current
Well,
time on the bench.
but you're talking about people that weren't council people. So as you're
Are
reporting.
you ordering me to stop?
I'm telling you.
Okay, well then I'm going to continue. I
No,
appreciate
Mr.
it.
Slattery, I'm going to tell you what I'm saying is you need to refrain from talking about people that are outside your investigation. You are to investigate council and council actions. You are right now, what you started talking about, sir. is
Matters of past and present council is what the contract
Council,
states.
right. And the SOS, the Secure Our Safety, had nothing to do with council. You're stretching outside of that.
No, I
to
don't
deal
believe
with
I
it.
am. When it comes to taxpayers' dollars, I don't believe I am. And that's exactly where I'm getting to
Well,
with this.
you're wrong about that, sir.
Okay, well,
You were supposed to refrain from making statements about private residents and their actions. You're supposed to contain your remarks simply to council actions and the actions of council people.
I'm here to give an update on this investigation. If
The
you're ordering,
investigation
well-
is supposed to be about council people and council actions.
council
not about-
actions, and it ties directly to this. I don't know how many times, I don't know, I've said it 6 times already.
I know you've said it 6 times
Yeah,
already,
well,
but you've talked about people that are not council people, too.
Point of order.
What's your point of order?
My point, don't look at her. I made the point of order. Point of order is,
I
this
can
is
look
a
at it.
this is public allowed to speak. He's speaking,
He was here to speak to us
and
about, I'm telling you what he was here to speak to us about. He was here to speak to us about the council investigation. He's outside his scope now, and he's starting to talk about private residents.
I request you
He
pull the,
wasn't hired to do an investigation about
Well,
private
how
residents.
is it in your eyes that
pull,
this-
pull council to see if he, to appeal your ruling, to have him proceed.
I will, actually.
Thank you.
I will ask council, is council okay with Mr. Slattery talking about private residents outside the scope of the investigation? That's the poll, because that's what he's doing right now. So Councilman
you.
Salvatore, are you okay with him talking about people that are outside the scope of the investigation and not about councilmen and council actions?
Mr. Chairman, I'm okay with him making a presentation based on his investigative authority given to him by city council. If there's something in this report that doesn't belong before council, then I don't really think we need to, it could be written, but I don't think we need to discuss it. I think we need to stick to the topic. I didn't really know, I didn't know you were gonna be here this evening, but since you're here, I would like to know what you have to say. I would like to know how it fits in with the investigative authority that we passed. And I'm anxious to get this moving so we can put it behind us. And I'd like to hear what the rest of the report is.
Okay, Councilman Bergio,
I would like to also hear the rest of the report, too.
Councilman Scott,
Proceed.
Councilman Mancini?
Thank you. Boy, I really, for one, don't like to see private citizens get called into anything. I mean, a lot of our stuff's taking our job, takes a lot of heat on us, and we're fine with that. That's what our job is. So I don't like when private, but I haven't heard a name of a private citizen, to be more than honest, to be more than fair. I know there was a group brought up, but there wasn't a name. Now we've seen a lot of names come up as of late, and I'm gonna sit here and lie to you guys. I ain't a big fan of that at all. Okay, bring me up, all right? Don't be bringing my neighbor, my brother, all that stuff. But to get to it, I'm fine. Let them continue. As long as we ain't here till 11:59, okay?
Okay. Councilwoman McDonald?
I also am in agreement that I would like to hear the rest of the report with the understanding that private citizens' privacy is upheld as much as possible.
I'm just here to
Oh,
read.
I'm still polling him.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
we need two
sorry.
more.
So you're okay with him going forward and talking about the
Yes.
SOS outside of the council actions?
I have not heard
Well, I mean,
Yes,
secure
yes.
secure our safety has nothing to do with what council actions were. That's what he's going to report on. Councilwoman Powers?
My understanding that he was hired to investigate what happened the first of the year and not what happened three years ago with private citizens. So, no, I do not want to hear, don't bring up things that are already settled. Let's talk about what we came here to talk about, which is what happened the first of the year.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. My correct answer is to say, no, we shouldn't be talking he shouldn't have even been investigating outside the scope of the what we approved the investigation for. And that was council office, it was a council office investigation. Now we're off years before on a group of private residents who, what their care was to try to save their fire station to keep themselves safe at night and during the day, have proper response times. I mean, this is what these people were for, to keep that fire station open when their safety was put in jeopardy by closing it, by the mayor closing it. So, I mean, it's really sad that this it's taken down this route. But personally, I'd almost like to have him hear what he has to say. But I still, again, think it's wrong. It's outside the scope, and I'll stick with that. Thank you.
Okay, so from my gathering, there's five of the council people that are saying it's okay for you to go beyond the scope of your authority. So go ahead, Mr. Slattery.
Okay. Like I was saying, March 2nd, 2015, there was a lawsuit filed against the Secure Our Safety PAC. On March 19th, 2015, council president, well, I take that back, he wasn't council president at the time. Mr. Astorino had several members of the PAC sign power of attorney forms permitting Deemert and Associates to fill the role as counsel for the lawsuit. Power of attorney also stated that NOF would cover all legal fees and costs incurred in that lawsuit. Jim Astorino was directly involved in the defense, and all the invoices were sent to him at his home. On June 30th, 2016, NOF made a $5,000 payment towards the legal fees of the PAC. That's actually being reviewed right now because, from what I've been advised, that's against the law for a nonprofit organization, charity organization, to make donations for legal fees. But that's for someone else to look into. January 27th, 2016. Now we're into the time where you were seated as council president. Without prior knowledge of members of the PAC, a Bessie Vetros and a Patty Astorino contacted Attorney Terry Gilbert's office seeking civil representation to file a lawsuit against the city to recover the legal fees for the PAC.
Hold on, Mr. Slattery. I want to check with council again. Again, council, he's bringing in names of people that are not on council. He's actually making this part of his report. He's outside the scope of his authority. Mr. Salvatore, are you okay with him mentioning names of people that are not on council?
I'm not okay with naming names unless they're important to the investigation. If there's a link to that, then I would like to see that, and that would probably show up in a written report. I'd really like to see the written version.
Don't you think, Mr. Salvatore, it would be best that he just mentioned that there was people, and when we see the report, we can make the determination whether it's important or not? But as it stands right now, Mr. Slattery is standing here and actually bringing in people's names that were not members of council. When he was hired by council to investigate council office operations and council people, he wasn't hired to investigate other residents and non-residents. He wasn't hired to represent people that were not sitting on council. He should be, in my mind, if he wants to say things, he just needs to maybe I caution him to use his words more appropriately and not actually mention names for the record, because that's what he's doing is he's mentioning people's names to us, to the people behind there, and to people on live stream. I don't know what his purpose is for mentioning names. I have my suspicions for what it is, but I'm not going to get into that. So you're okay with him using names instead of just making reference to two individuals or something?
I don't know why you keep putting words in my mouth. I said,
I'm asking you. I asked a question.
I said if it's important to this investigation and I can see that the names being mentioned are a part of the investigation authorized by city council, then yes, I think it has to be a part of it. If it's gonna be in written form, I would prefer reading this complete report before any judgment on my part, passing any judgment on anybody, if they should be a part of this report or not. It's not my report. I'm here to gather the facts and listen to what he has to say.
Okay. Councilman Bergio, are you okay with him using names of people that are not sitting on council? Or
I also would like to see a written report also, but the investigation, I think it needs to be thorough, and I would prefer not to hear individual names, of course, but I think we need to proceed and be careful about the way we proceed. So that would be my answer on that.
Councilman Scott, you as far as using the names?
Proceed.
Proceed using the names?
Proceed to go, move on here to the report.
I understand with the report, but the question is,
Yes.
you're okay with him using names of people that aren't on council?
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Mancini, are you okay with him using names of people that aren't on council?
Oh, that's $1 million question again, because I was going to do at the end, answer the audience, and, you know, we're going over websites and investigations and records requests, and we should be talking about how we're going to do our rec center and get our streets done and everything else that we're all walking for the election that we're hearing. And instead, we're here with this fine audience, with a room packed here, going over this stuff. Breaks my heart, so you all know. Okay, I think there's a lot more important things in the city to be doing. Not that this thing isn't important, okay? So, but my point on this is, I would probably prefer names not coming in. We just had 25 brought up here last week, that I really don't care for private citizens' names getting dragged in. But, Mr. Slattery, I will let you go. You know, again, I just hope this ain't going till 11:59 tonight. We got a lot of people here, and.
I hope not myself.
All right, because I think there's other people who want to speak, at least I think so, the place is packed, so, all right, so, okay, thank you.
I need a little clarity, Councilman. Is that a yes or a no that he can use names?
I prefer he didn't mention names, but let's just go on. Okay,
Okay, so
hopefully he's gonna,
Councilwoman McDonald.
May I ask a question to Mr. Slattery?
Certainly, go ahead.
As you continue on your notes, is there a section that won't necessarily talk about specific residents? Is this, or
With this section of dealing with
this particular
this
section?
particular section, there's no other private citizen's name that is mentioned, but you will understand why I mentioned a name when we get to the website.
Okay. Again, I would have to say that privacy of residents is one of my top priorities, but I think in this case, the investigation notes need to be presented, so
So you're okay with them using names?
I'm okay, yes.
Okay, Councilwoman Powers?
I am not in favor of him using names of private citizens. Among other things, I think that it probably would open us up to a lawsuit for using any private citizen's name. I don't believe we should be focusing anything at all on the SOS group. We should stick to the form, and instead of taking up our time, as Councilman Mancini said, we got more important things to do tonight. Give us a presentation in writing, and let's go through proper forms. We don't need to be here until 11:59 tonight, and this is the direction this meeting is heading, and we've got enough on the agenda without spending a lot of time on this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I would agree, we shouldn't be using private citizens' names. That's, wow. This is kind of an ambush, and it's kind of funny that I think one of the
Councilman
councilmen.
Troyer, contain
Okay,
your.
I apologize.
Don't.
I think it's
offer
kind of
your
funny that
opinion.
one of the councilmen mentioned that he's right. We should be talking about roads and doing things, get things done for the city. But but the funny thing is that this was the councilman that made the motion to go out of the regular order and obviously knew that Mr. Slattery was gonna come up.
No, I didn't.
So I think that's
Point
kind
of
of-
order, point
Kind
of
of
order.
ironic, but
Point of
thank you.
order. My point of order is I didn't know he was coming up to the mic. I knew all them were, but I didn't know he was, so you were
Okay,
dead wrong.
okay.
Dead wrong.
Councilman, your
Well,
point.
I'm not gonna sit here and
Councilman
listen to this
Vincenzi,
stuff
please.
till 11:59. I'm not.
We could get on with it.
I'm
if you-
done.
If you would wait. I know you're done.
He always makes judgments. That's all he does
No,
up
but when
here.
you raise a point of order, you're supposed to raise your point of order to me. I would rule on it,
All right,
and then you don't need to go into other descriptions like you did.
okay.
So please, last meeting you talked about professionalism and professional behavior up here. Please exercise that
And that's
too.
everybody.
Contain yourself.
And that's
Contain
everybody.
yourself too, right.
Absolutely,
I
that's
understand that.
everybody up here.
But if you raise a point of order, you gotta let me do my
Seen a
job
lot of
on the point of
unprofessional
order and not
business up
take it into
here.
your own hands.
No problem.
Okay. So Councilman Troyer.
I'm
I
done,
take-
thank
I take it that you're a no on the names.
Correct.
And the only clarity I need was, Councilman Berger, you were okay with him using names?
I was okay with proceeding.
That doesn't answer the question.
Yes.
is, Are you okay with him using names?
Mr. Slattery said he doesn't going to use any more names anyway, so I'm okay for proceeding.
So you're okay with the names? Okay, so that means that you can proceed, Mr. Slattery.
Thank you. Okay, like I said, on January 27th, that email was sent to that Terry Gilbert's law firm seeking representation in a lawsuit against the city. On April 9th, 2016, Julie McCormick copied Council President Astorino an email to the law director seeking legislation to release up to $25,000 to recoup legal fees for that PAC. On May 17th, another email was sent to the law director seeking those same funds and legislation. Legislation was not completed because the law director requested documentation in regards to the request, and no documents were ever submitted to the law department. The investigation started 4/12/2017. 12 days later, Deemert and Associates forgave the balance of $12,340 of the legal fees of the PAC. Brook Park was never legally obligated to pay those funds. Council President Astorino had a financial tie to the PAC in a $3,100 loan. Council President Astorino did participate in the defense of the lawsuit while seated as council president, and it's in question whether he advised the other council members of that. He did participate in meetings and in an attempt to gain that money to pay the legal fees, which I believe, and this term has been thrown at me quite a bit during this investigation, a conflict of interest. There are actually 2 state agencies that are working on parallel investigations into some of the complaints about the PAC and how the finances were dealt with. We'll move on to the website. The mayor did not, and the law director did not directly request the subpoena for the email, for the information on the website. I did that. On August 14th, I sent the email in to all of council and the council president. So on August 14th, I submitted the request for the subpoenas. On August 15th, 2017, Mr. Astorino contacted Geek Storage in regards to the account password. On August 18th, Mr. Astorino contacted Geek Storage, reporting he was unable to access. On August 23rd, 2017, Mr. Astorino contacted Geek Storage in regards to adding another administrator. Now, this is where the one name's going to come back in. In one of the emails between Mr. Astorino and Geek Storage, it listed a separate account tied to a FaceStar organization, phastar.org. I Googled that company, and one of the directors is listed as a Bessie Vetros, who came in with the request for the suit. So the question still remains, who owns the site or has owned it, and who had or has access to that site and the emails? That's what we're waiting for with motions that will hopefully come tonight in front of the council, for the simple fact that 2 weeks ago, they stated if that information wasn't answered, they would issue a subpoena. Now, moving on to the interviews of the council members. On 4/12, the investigation started. 4/11 was the meeting, 4/12 is the first day of the contract. I contacted Mr. Troyer at his home number. I was shocked at how disrespectful he was to me. He made comments that the mayor already wrote my report All I had to do was sign it. Then he advised me, and he went on to say that he's a law and order type of a guy, and he just wants to do the right thing. He then stated to me that he's facing criminal charges and he needs to speak with his attorney before he could give a formal statement. I never got a call back from him. I even asked him at the last meeting 2 weeks ago if he was interested in sitting down. He told me that he couldn't, that the law director told me wasn't allowed. On the 12th, about an hour after I spoke with Mr. Troyer, I got a call from Mr. Astorino. Mr. Astorino stated that all information should go through him as president and that he would decide what to disseminate to the others. I explained that I would share all information with all council members at the same time by email. I then went and separately, I met with Mr. Salvatore, Mr. Bergio, Mr. Scott, and Mr. Mancini. They all explained, and it was pretty much the same thing. They all explained their frustration of the current state of the council and things needed to be corrected. None had any direct knowledge of any of the altered documents or the website. All did state that the council minutes issue was due to the rule change and having so many meetings. Mr. Mancini did offer up a statement that he was disappointed with the actions of Mr. Troyer and Mr. Astorino, and he has told them that he expected better from them. I did have an interview set up with Councilwoman Powers, and then she called me back and canceled. I met with Mr. Astorino in council chambers, and he stated that all of the problems were caused by the mayor and the law director. He stated that he thought that Julie had the legal, that she changed the legislation, but it was within her authority as the council, or the chairperson of the committee, even though Councilman Bergio knew nothing about the legislation. It is not known if Mr. Troyer was aware of the legislation as he refused to be interviewed because of his pending criminal case. I mentioned that because he was on the committee. Mr. Astorino stated the law director is too flexible with giving the mayor authority and is beyond her authority in the city's charter at times. Mr. Astorino went on to say, I don't think it's a bad thing for council to be divided. I asked Mr. Astorino if he had regular Sunday meetings at his home with council members, and he stated yes, the same two people come over, the rest don't care what I have to say. I asked who the two were, and he stated Tom Troyer and Jan Powers. I sent Mr. Astorino an email asking him for his understanding of what happened to the 4 pieces of legislation and the law stamp, and he failed to respond to me. To clear this issue, I think it would be of value to offer a polygraph test to the law clerk, council clerk, the law director, and the council president. Maybe we'll get some answers about the stamp. In closing, I've been involved in tons of investigations, and I've never seen one where family members of people that were being reviewed go on social media, local newspaper, and slam the investigator. Like I said before, the term of conflict of interest has been thrown at me so many times during this investigation. I was actually contacted on Facebook by a family member of the council president stating she's having me investigated and will call the state. She's also gone on my Facebook page and sent photos back to me stating I should be fired, I lied, I'm unethical. I didn't disclose that I work on a board of directors with a relative of the rec manager. Now, I didn't know she worked here. That's how close I am with her. I do know her mother-in-law. I've known her since I was a kid. But it's kind of hypocritical to be called a liar and say I concealed something when most of council didn't even bother to call me to interview me prior to hiring me. 3 people called me. A 4th one explained that he was fine with the investigation, and to him, whoever the majority picked, he was good with. Now, okay, the funny thing is, to go on with that, Mr. Astorino never bothered to pick up a phone, call me, ask me one question, tried to get around the hiring the night of the meeting of the 11th. Mr. Troyer said he had his people look into me, but he didn't bother calling me. But now I find I am under investigation because the council president has made a public records request in my personnel files of the 2 law enforcement divisions I worked for. And that's fine. I have I have no problem with it, but it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. And then going to come back and say I'm outside the scope of my authority. I'd ask, how many investigations have you conducted? It's amazing, and it's sad that the forms of intimidation that certain members of this council and this city use, and they're bullying people. And what I would say in closing, they need to remember the job they swore to do. Have a good night.
Anyone else want to come to for audience participation?
Hello, my name is Joan Markusik. I live at 13911 Bellbrook Drive. I will not be as entertaining. When a council person is saying that
Can
council
you put
has...
the microphone a little closer? It's hard to hear you up here.
Sure. When a council person is saying that council has hidden agenda, why is point of order not called? To have someone on council accuse fellow council members of misconduct is very wrong. Our city has been on hold long enough over a web page that only after 8 months of a special council president's sharing information, he has. I feel like our meetings are being held on Facebook before they're here, and I find that very disturbing for all of you, and it gives us very little credit that you have anything to say to the people that are here or the people that are watching, because I know it's hard to believe, but not everybody is on Facebook. I'd like to know how many times a question needs to be asked before an answer is adequate enough for them to stop asking a question. I'm tired of the same question being asked 20 different ways, and every time that it's asked, I see a smirk, and they're not going to accept any answer, and it's just that they want to annoy people, and it's very annoying, and I'd really appreciate if you would stop, because holding up a meeting is very rude. I also want to know why, again, if you're up here to represent us residents, why are you constantly going after one another? I don't think any resident has that on their agenda to move the city forward. I think the only hidden agenda this council has is to see who can ask the same question and how you can hold up business. What else? You're just so annoying, I can't even believe that you're up there. Not that I want your job, mind you, although Mr. Scott watched it. Although I like you. I think that there should be some kind of respect as far as the criticism towards one another and the residents in the city and what we need. The residents ask you to do your job, and I think that yet again, as I remind you, you should step up and do it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Don Cantlin. I live at 6377 Mont Drive, and I'm just here to bring up something that's pretty dear to me. This Sunday, the 10th, is the 16th anniversary being held here at Kennedy Park. I don't know what they name it now, but for motorcyclists, we come in, and it's to ceremony of the 9/11 tragedy that happened 16 years ago. And we've been here for the last, I believe, 3 or 4 years, and I'm hoping that we can get through the all-call or whatever they call that to let the Brook Park residents know that this Sunday at 11 o'clock a ceremony will begin for the remembrance of the 9/11 tragedy. After that, there's a small ride out of Brook Park, but before that, there's a large ride that comes into Brook Park. The city members don't know it, the residents, I should say, don't know of this memorial that's going on. And I think if we can get an all-call out, we would have a very large commitment of residents that would come there and be part of the ceremony to remember the 9/11 tragedies. So I'm hoping we can get that through, that it could be announced to the city residents. I think it's very important because I know they'll be there. So thank you.
Jack Thomas, 15913 Ramore Boulevard. This is open for anything right now?
Yes, this is on any subject matter, yes.
Well, I'd like to ask some rhetorical questions, so they don't require a response, just planting food for thought. So first off, I'm curious, does anyone in the dais or in the audience or happen to be watching this live via stream at home really believe that people in Paynesville or Parma or Lakewood or wherever care about the fight over these emails and things that are going on? Seriously. I know we have passion here and we're discussing it, and that's good. I'm all for that. Why is it necessary to call in the TV media? If it were that big of a news story, don't you think that other stations would have been here also? Why do some think it's a good idea to air our disagreements to others who have no interest in the outcome, other than to mock us? I have friends in other cities who call me after the airing of these situations and ask, why would you want media coverage for something that's just going to make your city look so bad? I don't have an answer for them. Maybe the other media outlets don't show up because they know that no one else cares. Regardless of how you sit on this situation and other televised events here at Council, are we doing ourselves or our community any good in promoting our city by this? Regardless of the outcome, is there anything good coming out of this at all? I think not. Secondly, I don't understand the mentality of some of those on social media from all sides who are also doing the same thing. I'm not denying freedom of speech, but again, does what is happening out there reflect on our community in any positive way? It's okay to disagree with each other on policies or procedures and what one perceives needs to be done and by whom. That's fine. That's all part of the electoral process, and that's what it's for. It's bad enough that we have a city employee bragging about shutting down a church on social media and yet still retains his positions. Those types of things are surely setting bad examples for the young people we are hoping to leave our city for in the future. This past week, and that's why I decided to come to speak tonight, not to get involved in this other stuff, it'll work itself out. I was so appalled about the example I saw. Someone who obviously has a dislike for the policies of our council president posted a picture of him with an Adolf Hitler-style mustache and a swastika on his sleeve. Really? To compare the doings of a madman who was responsible for the genocidal killing of millions of men, women, and children to the actions of any of our elected officials, and I do mean any of you, I would stick up the same for any of you, is absolutely insane. It's insensitive. It puts a bad light on the rest of us in the city. Anybody who saw that post should knock that person off of social media and contact Facebook as a hate crime. Finally, I'd like to address the signs being posted in our neighborhoods. The signs that read, "Drive like your kids live here." The signs are fine, and if they bring attention to the problem, then they are a welcome addition. However, if you are one of those that are posting the sign in your yard, please do it safely. Don't put it out at the end of the tree lawn where some child might pop out from behind one and you're actually creating a problem. In closing, I hope the person or persons who think it's funny to establish bully type of behavior by constantly badgering of others, no matter what side you're on, and their families, again, no matter what side you're on, remember that our children are watching. He who yells loudest wins is not a good mantra to teach our kids and should have no place in these chambers as well. Here's an idea. Perhaps instead of posting signs that say, "Drive like your kids live here," we could post signs for some of these people that say, "Act like your kids live here." Thank you.
Ray Peterlin, 5811 Wangler Drive, Brook Park. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and residents. Time. Time to watch. How much time we seem to let slide by. We think we are using time wisely, but are we? Last caucus meeting, for example, 6 items were there to be dealt with. 4 from Council President, 2 from Mayor Coyne. One would think that it would be less than 1 hour's work. In other cities, perhaps, not in Brook Park. It's a long, drawn-out battle. First, I'd like to know how the agenda is organized. The selling of land to raise money and getting much-needed new equipment is at the tail end of the agenda. Why are these things not at the beginning, since their importance seems to be a priority for the city's well-being? Then there is an issue of minutes, verbatim versus synopsis of the meeting. So how is the law director going to do her job if the meeting notes are not verbatim? Council President said it adds a burden to the clerk's workload, adding 4 to 5 hours for each hour of meeting. Yet there's a modern solution for this. The computer or smartphone will do the boring work for you. As a matter of fact, check with other cities near Brook Park that are already using this system. I have a hard time believing some of you on council do not already know about this. Time. Watch the meeting in Washington, Congress and the Senate. Time is given to all, but restricted to the amount of time per person to ensure that the meeting moves forward in a timely manner. Telling Tom Coyne that he's out of order and not letting him speak at all, is this the way to run a city? We can put time caps on each speaker. 1 or 2 hours should be enough. Change whatever you must to see that this is the law of Brook Park. What have we done at council meetings? Gave money, lots of money, to help businesses grow. Voted to put up new outdoor lighting for sports, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Voted money to put new roofs on outdoor sports buildings. Not because the roofs were failing, but because it would be more aesthetic and blend better. Tens of thousands of dollars on this alone. Of course, we need a new fencing for the outdoor sports and resurfacing the parking lot for the rec center. Then inside the rec center, we had to build a new director, a new lush, spacious office. The old one just wouldn't do anymore. More tens of thousands of dollars. Of course, it was also time to refinish the floor in the basketball court. More tens of thousands of dollars. I guess it was also time to buy more exercise equipment, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not only the money, but it's hard, very hard, to move between the equipment. People with walkers and canes have difficulty. More than likely, it's not ADA accessible. It's time to ask the finance director, Mr. Siegel, to tell us exactly how much money was spent on improvements in the last 4 years. Why is it time for these answers? Why now? It's election time. This is one time people of Brook Park have a real chance to steer our course. We are being told that the Brook Park needs a dog park at $30,000+ and put in Ward 3. First, we do not need a dog park, but if we did, the location's wrong. It should be by the ballpark at Kennedy Field, center of the city. Second, either way, you have to drive your dog to these. Why not use the dog parks already available, such as the metro parks? No money from the city budget, no noise, no smell, no parking problems, no required maintenance. I'm sorry for using all this to air these questions, but someone must take time to do it. Before I finish, there's one more timely item I have not discussed, our beloved swimming pools. We are told not too many people use them, but there are people who are old, trying to stay fit, fighting arthritis, learning to swim, and many other uses. Yet not many people use our hook and ladder fire truck. Not everyone uses our tennis courts. But we keep the lights on, thousands of watts burning, even in the dead of winter, so we can play snow tennis. A report in 2014 said the rec center roof was failing in 2014, yet we did nothing about it. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not right either. We did do something. We kept pouring thousands of gallons of water on a bad roof, trying to keep the air conditioning units running. This only caused the air conditioning units to rust out prematurely and the age of the roof to accelerate at an accelerated pace. Of course, the water and sewer bill also climbed drastically. At home, if you turn on a sprinkler and let it run all summer, watch your water bill. Yikes. Council voted to spend $7-8 million to repair that could have been done with cash for the rec center. Anyone familiar with accounting knows that 20 years for a bond is not the smartest thing to do. In the newsletter from Mayor Coyne, fall of 2017, he tells us on page 1, the roof repair is $1 million. But on page 3 of the same paper, the same author says it's $500,000. If the roof's bad over the pool on one side of the wall, then the other side of the wall of the rec center has also been compromised. People are leaving Brook Park's rec center and going to Middleburg Heights and other rec centers. They found they have no more time for games. Let us tonight put on the agenda an emergency bill to repair the pool roof. Take a recess so the clerk can type it up like we've done before and vote on it before the election. If not, you will see new faces in this council chamber. Thank you.
Good evening. Susan Booker, 13855 Franklin Boulevard. Good evening. And on a lighter note, I am representing the Brook Park Neighborhood Watch. We just had an organizational meeting a few weeks ago and wanted to bring everyone up to date and what our successes have been and what is planned for the 2018 season, as we are an integral part of the city of Brook Park. Let me put my glasses on. The vision of the Brook Park Neighborhood Watch group is to make Brook Park a safer or more reliable city through crime prevention and problem solving. The mission of the Brook Park Neighborhood Watch is to work to develop a sustainable block watch groups within our wards that will be an extension of the Brook Park safety forces and to help to implement our vision. Excuse me. Our board committee representatives is Jennifer Roberts, president, myself as vice president, Jeff Duke is our treasurer, Becky Conroy as our secretary, and Matt Mahan as our advisor. Please note we do have a Facebook page. We also have a web page. Our memberships are available at $5 an individual, $7 a family. I know I was rushing this evening, I'm sorry, from another event. So there are memberships available, 5, 7 for family, and we also have a discount for our seniors of Brook Park. Those funds are used to support activities such as the upcoming safety fair here in a few weeks, as well as our Halloween party, our tie the ribbons around the trees, the poles, to say thank you and that we support our safety forces here in Brook Park. We are looking for memberships and active involvement of our mayor, our city council president, as well as our councilmen and other administration in the city. Please support us. We bring great things to the city. And the other thing I forgot to mention that you all know is near and dear to my heart is the heroin initiative. That continues to grow with different opportunities for fundraising for this initiative, as well as education out to our children, to ourselves, adults, and to our seniors to make them further aware of what's going on as this initiative continues and the epidemic continues. And closing on that, as Hurricane Irma is closing in on Florida, my son is down there, and they're currently making preparations, and I ask that you keep everyone there in your thoughts and your prayers, especially in this stressful situation, which is very difficult for those that are addicted to a substance or alcohol. So please keep them in your prayers. And thank you, and we look forward to your support. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to come forward to speak under audience participation?
Tom Dufour, 15300 Richard. I'm not going to take very long, but it's just something that's been going through my mind, and I felt like I better just say it tonight. I really wasn't planning on talking today, but when my wife and I moved here, my wife's from Pittsburgh, I'm from Toledo. She was living in Cincinnati, and I was living in Pittsburgh, and we decided that we needed to move somewhere together when we got married. Well, she was going to get transferred up here. She was looking to get transferred to Cleveland, but she got transferred, she was getting transferred to Pittsburgh. She got transferred here. And we looked at different neighborhoods. We looked at the Lakewoods where all the young hip people live. We looked at all the Ohio cities and everything. We looked at all these different places. We found a home in Brook Park. And to come here the last couple weeks and just hear this banter, this just insane amount of effort just to demonize everybody, just to go on and on and on. I want these things to be resolved as much as anybody does. But it's like Jimmy said, we should be talking about our sidewalks. We should be talking about our parks. We should be talking about our pools and our different assets. We didn't actually know when we moved here that we had a community center. But when we found out we did, that was great. We have friends that come here from Pittsburgh, that come here from Toledo, that come here from Columbus, stay with us, park their cars in our driveway because they love that we're so close to an airport. We fly all over the place because we're so close. This town is in a unique position. There are so many companies that hire people now, and just last week or the week before that, there was this big announcement that Facebook's building a huge data center outside of Columbus. Why wouldn't people for those kind of jobs where they can work remotely, why would they not want to live here? We have everything here. We're so close to so many major cities. We're right next to an airport. I don't have to worry about airport parking. I just take an Uber over there. It just blows my mind sometimes that we're sitting on this wealth of opportunity as a city, and it just gets so frustrating to see that we're not acting on it, that we just waste time and time. And I'm not going to waste any more of your time, but that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Brenda Basham, 19132 Sheldon Road. Speaking of sidewalks, I forked out for 6 blocks to be replaced, $420. On the 27th of July, I was told that work would start in 2 weeks. It's a month, more than a month. The weather's starting to turn cold. Are these blocks gonna get in? Are they gonna harden up right? How long's my yard gonna look like crap? Right there in the front, because my house is right there. I gotta know when they're gonna do the work, because my windows are all open. I'm not privileged like everybody else to have any air conditioning, so all that dust is gonna come right into the house, and my grandkids are there, they're gonna breathe it in. So after I forked out this $420, I'm still waiting for the work to be done. I'd like it to be done before the weather turns really cold and the concrete won't set, and then I'm gonna have to replace it again next year. Thank you.
Okay, could you repeat your name and address? We didn't catch it up here.
Brenda Basham, 19132 Sheldon Road.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience want to speak at the podium? All right, seeing no one else coming forward,
Motion to address the audience?
there's a motion to address the audience. It hasn't been supported, so we'll move forward. What I'd like, council, is a motion to go back to the regular order of business.
Motion so made.
Support.
Been a motion to go back to the regular order of business, properly supported. Clerk, please call the roll.
Troyer,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Roll.
Scott,
Yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
McDonald,
Abstain.
Mancini,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes for the July 18, 2017 meeting have been approved. We moved to item number 2, which is a regular council meeting that was held on August 15, 2017.
Motion to approve those August 15th meeting minutes?
Support.
There's been a motion to approve. It's been properly supported. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mancini,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Okay, the meeting minutes for the August 15, 2017 meeting have been approved. That concludes the items under letter C. We'll move to letter D, which is reports of standing committees. We'll go to Aviation and Environmental. Councilwoman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. The RTA opened had its grand opening for its Brook Park station that connects the airport and the downtown. It's the biggest, most heavily used station on the entire RTA system. They had a little ceremony, and Mayor Coyne got to be one of the 5 that cut the ribbon.
That's cool.
And they fed us a nice lunch, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to the Finance Committee. Councilwoman McDonald.
Thank you. Nothing to report today.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the Legislative Committee. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Legislative Committee has nothing originally on the agenda, but I expect one thing to be placed on tonight's agenda coming out of Legislative Committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to Parks and Recreation Committee. Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go over one more time what Mr. Caitlin had brought up about the 16th anniversary of Never Forget. I concur with him. I didn't get to remark back to the audience, but I think it's very important. It would be great to have a nice showing there. Remember, that's going to be Sunday on the 10th at 11 o'clock up there. So, I mean, I live right on the other side of the bridge. You could hear all the motorcycles and stuff going. It's a sight to behold, but it's the cause. And, you know, before I get to my rec report, Sue, absolutely, for all the hurricane people that went through stuff in Houston, and let's be honest, hopefully nothing down on the East Coast and Florida coming up this weekend, so let's keep them in our prayers too. The rec report, again, I think you guys all come in and, you know, things are bubbling over there, and I still think it's a great place. I'm there almost every day till I had my hip replacement, and I had to take a little break, but I still love the place, and I think it's got a lot to offer. We had another new program this year. It was a summer tennis session. We had 26 participants. It just concluded this past Saturday. If you drove past there, you've seen a lot of kids and everybody over there. It was a great program. We had amazing volunteers. Danielle Colonna, Tricia Riddell, they volunteered. There was a lot of people that volunteered over that in the spring. I think they had 23 people over there, or 23 kids for the tennis thing. So, you know, the tennis courts are being used. Pee Wee and Clinic football started this evening. Again, when you guys probably pulled up today, you probably seen that big group on Kennedy Field. That was them. Kind of cute to watch them little tykes running around chasing that football. They probably really don't know too much what they're doing yet, but it's kind of cute to see. And they give it their all. By the end of the year, they're probably ready for the Browns. So we'll leave that right there. Our tackle and football flag cheerleading, that starts this Saturday. That's September 9th. Come on out, support our teams, our players. We actually have our fundraiser later that night. It's going to be a good event. I'm just hoping the weather's really good. We were practicing a little early up there today, and I got the 7 and 8 year olds, and we got 27 kids. We're ready, and so are 21 cheerleaders. So come out and see us on Saturday. Co-ed volleyball, ages 8 to 17, and co-ed dodgeball, 6 to 13 registrations the entire month of September. Okay, and remember, basketball and sign-ups will be coming around the corner too, if you could believe that. Kind of hate to hear that, but it's getting that point of year, like a couple people said, winter's coming. The safety fair, it'll be Saturday the 23rd. It's gonna be a big event. Be right over there by the rec center. It's gonna be from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. A lot of wonderful vendors, great activities for the families. Be something to see. I'm gonna get too into it because I might spoil it a little bit, but if you have some time on the 23rd, go on over from 11 to 2 and you're gonna see a great event, okay? So I appreciate you listening. Again, thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you very much. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. We'll move to the Planning Committee. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Let me get my glasses on. There is going to be a planning committee meeting. It's coming Monday. And where's my notes? The 11th. And I will go over some of the things that will be in the new business. Number one is request approval for a conditional use permit to construct and maintain a two-family dwelling at 6091 Smith Road, located in the U1-A5 zone. And this will, if this does pass planning, it will go to council for final approval. Applicant is Erica Bogdan, property owner. Number two is a request project approval to construct and a conditional use permit to operate a multi-tenant building at permanent parcel number 344-16-008. And this is the lot at the corner of 130th and Middlebrook, located in a U3B zone. Again, if this does pass planning, it will come to council for final approval. If anybody has, any council members need me to add, these are two important issues. If any member of council would like me to ask any questions at zoning, let me know if you have any issues. And the applicant on this one is Abe Abdullah. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to the Safety Committee. Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have an item on the third reading for the purchase of 4 vehicles for the safety forces, and I would anticipate that should pass this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll move to the Service Committee. Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Service Committee has one item on tonight's agenda. It's under first reading. It's the Kubota excavator with trade-in legislation. And that is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll move to Board of Zoning Appeals. Councilman Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Board of Zoning has a meeting, like Mr. Troyer stated. It's concerning the property on West 130th and Middlebrook, coming up for some variances. So basically, that's all we have, just one piece of legislation, one piece on the agenda for that day. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the items under letter D. We'll move to letter E, which is reports of special committees. We'll go to the Southwest General Health Center trustee, Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We haven't had a meeting since my last report, so I do not have a formal report this evening. But I do have just one quick announcement. Dr. Marilyn McNamara has formally announced her plan for retirement in October. And Dr. McNamara has been associated with Southwest for 37 years now. She started with us as a vascular surgeon, and then she became our chief medical officer. She'll be truly missed and extremely hard to replace, but she's going to definitely have a well-reserved, she's really prepared for her retirement, and she certainly does deserve it, so we wish her all the best. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the Berea Board of Education Committee, Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At our last council meeting, I gave the report covering the August 21st meeting. We haven't had a meeting since, but I would like to update council just on a couple of reminders. The first day of school was, of course, August 22nd, and I believe that went pretty smoothly. Councilman Mancini asked about the district facilities page, and I mentioned to him the last time that there's a website for updates on construction. And let me just remind people, the website is berea.k12.oh.us, and there's a link on there for an update on construction. And just another couple reminders that we have 2 restaurants at Polaris, Mizzen Place Restaurant, which is open for lunch Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, beginning in October, It's only for about an hour and a half. It's from 12 noon to 1:30. And the Old Oak Cafe, they have takeout sandwiches, soup, salads, hot entrees, etc. For the menu and hours of operation, you can visit polaris.edu, and all the information will be there. But I encourage everybody to try them out. They're very good food. And the students help prepare the food at the Old Oak Cafe. It's from the food production program, so I know I'm going to be trying it soon. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. That concludes items under letter E. We have no items under letter F or G, so we will move to letter H, which is reports and communications from the mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank Councilman Mancini for announcing the safety fair, and it'll be good exposure for our citizens to see the various programs and various departments, including our own, and how we're dealing with the issues facing the city. What's most important, Mike O'Malley, our county prosecutor, will have his folks on hand, and he'll be providing child identification kits for families. We used to do this way back when the regular fingerprints were kind of the thing of the day. And I would encourage young families with children to come and see what they offer. And unfortunately, in our world today, we have to be prepared we pray for the best, but we have to be prepared for the worst. So I'd hope everyone would attend. It's Saturday, September the 23rd from 11 to 2 a.m. At the Brook Park Recreation Center. Mr. Chairman, I provided the Clerk of Council this evening with a schedule of special meetings to deal with the Recreation Center. The meetings will begin on Tuesday, September the 12th at 7 o'clock. We encourage the public to come and listen to the things that we're talking about over at the Rec Center. We'll also be having a meeting later in the month to discuss the hot topic of the time, the aquatic needs of the city of Brook Park, and hopefully that's on our Facebook, and it'll be provided for on the announcement on our announcement board at the corner of England and Holland. We also subsequently called meetings for Sunday, September the 16th and the 26th. I've given council this evening all of the proposals, all our recommended thing for the City Hall improvements, the council's audio-visual. Again, those of you who have not visited Lakewood City Council, I hope that you do that so you know what we're proposing. I think our folks will be excited about it. The budget that we asked council to pass for these items earlier in the year, we're pretty close to what our proposals were at that time. This gives council a whole month. We're asking that they take the month of September because we have to have this as equipment outside the ramifications of the energy savings program that's providing payment for the improvements for the rest of the rec center. So again, we'd like to get these passed by the end of September so that we can incorporate this equipment along with the improvements that are being made by the contractors. The sad thing is we won't be able to save the dais here. It looks like an outstanding structure, but basically below the paneling, it's not exactly what we think it is. It looks more substantial than before, so we're not going to be able to save that structure in the report. As soon as I have the finalized draft of the architectural recommendations, hopefully by the time these meetings occur, we will have that so people can see exactly what's going to happen at the rec center. And if I may, since most of Mr. Peterlin's letter was about the rec center, I'd like to comment on just a few issues that are in that, and I hope that he comes to the meeting along with others to talk about that. I'm not going to get into council's operation. I think that's for them to determine, but I'd just like to make a few comments about the rec center in particular. And he states in here that in the rec programs, parks and planner programs, he talks about here about all of the money that we spend for outdoor lighting for our sports facilities. Well, the fact is our poles are failing at the present facilities. Not only are they homes for bees and wasps, they're failing. You can see those poles have probably been there for 30 years. Presently at the Weedo Park, we installed lighting there when I was mayor 20-some years ago. And the reason for that was so that the T-ball and our coach pitch league, the parents could come in the evening and watch their kids play ball. So we invested in lighting down there. The decision for the Marines to take back their one field that they own, coupled with the facts is we're consolidating operations into the Kennedy Park complex. It makes sense for us to take those lighting structures, which it can be moved, and place them up at Huffsey and Forbes to replace those poles, and council has passed that. There's nothing aesthetic about it. It's so that we can have these sports activities in the evening, and that includes the building and the cover over the dugouts. As we see, I'm not going to tell you what my feelings are about the Paris Peace Accords and global warming, but we're seeing an increase in heat, and certainly the players welcome the coverage, and a lot of the parents have asked that we find some way to cover the viewing area for them so they can encourage and watch the sports as well. I don't think anybody could argue that the sports activities are one of the amenities as to why people locate here. And I would suggest that had done with the Kennedy concession stand that was torn down in this city, which is going to cost about $500,000 to replace. That same process should have taken place over there, and we wouldn't have porta potties at the field. But that's another recreational issue for the future in dealing with that. The new fencing that was put around the fields out there was necessary because, again, the old field, the old fencing was failing. It's a matter of safe playing of ball. We also have a portable fence on those fields out there so that young and old can play and consolidate our operations into that field, thereby minimizing our expenses and providing for those things. And I think the parents liked being up there, including the addition of the hot dog lady, which was no charge to the city of Brook Park. We have not resurfaced the parking lot for the rec center. We seal coated it. It certainly needs to be done, and that's something in a larger issue that we need to have a conversation in the city about what we want to spend on recreation center. The spacious office that is referred to there was put in the center of the building. Our director was brand new when we opened that office up, positioning her in an area that I think that all activity is coming, whether they're coming from the gym or wherever they're coming from. As a result of the reductions there, everybody now works at the front desk. Okay, and we will utilize that office in the redevelopment of the rec for whatever necessary, maybe including more room for some of our exercise equipment. And while we talk about these amenities and why people are going here and there, I can assure you for $10 a month, they're getting new equipment wherever they're going. And so council passed legislation, and we provided all new equipment into our rec center, anticipating the other improvements that we were going to make. And the floor at the basketball court was clearly worn out, and it probably gets the most activity of young and old alike in our city, particularly our young people. They're there all the time, and I hope it's a problem we continue to have, that they're wearing out the courts in the basketball, including the junior gym, because they're using it, and I think that's a very good sign. And I hope that everyone comes to the meeting to talk about the pool, and they get to take a real good look at what the situation is. As relative to the roof report in 2014, we were battling operating the city and keeping policemen and firemen and service workers on the payroll. There wasn't really a lot of room to talk about the rec center roof, and I probably know the history of it better than anybody. Maybe Mr. Peeler remembers, is that the building was built without the pool in it. The whole structure was built without the pool in it because we had a pool out here and there was a lawsuit over it. So therefore, that building was sitting there for quite some time. I put a new roof on it in 1996, and folks told us, you put this mud flap on there and the roof's not going to leak and everything's going to be fine. I said, that sounds pretty good to me. And then some years later, Mark Elliott, the next mayor, put another metal roof on. You put the metal roof over the mud flap, it's not going to leak. Well, it did. And we just commissioned a recent engineering report. I hope to have it by the time we have our community meeting, and it'll tell you that it's more than just the roof leaking. It's the failure of the walls or other issues. There's two prices because there's two different sections. One is the one they're doing now, which is about $500,000. Estimated right now to repair the roof, if it can be repaired, is close to $1 million. I believe it's going to have to be taken off the building. I believe that the support walls and the support systems of that building are going to have to be addressed, and so that's why we have to have a larger discussion of what our needs are. I propose, and I will still propose, even if we have a brand-new indoor-outdoor pool at a price to $10 million to $12 million, that the action pools be placed as part of our operations in the rec, because the very seniors that you talk about need that as an exercise. I don't know they need an Olympic-sized pool, but many people need that as an exercise, so I hope that's part of it. So I encourage everyone to come to the meeting. It will be posted. It has been talked about here, to talk about that future, because that's the way it's done in Brook Park. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say this. I monitor the Facebook. We continue to hear these problems in the city. I don't participate in Facebook, but I do monitor. As a matter of fact, when I came back, most mayors that were still in office suggested that I ignore it. Well, you can't ignore it, because that's where the dialogue of your city takes place. And when people suggest that we shouldn't televise our meetings or it's always been like this in Brook Park, except we didn't have an internet that recorded it. People came to meetings and they bitched. And that's how they got things done, whether it was their street, whether it was a park, whether it was flooding. This is small potato crowds compared to when we had the floodings here in 1983. Or when there was talk about regulating firearms in the city, they were already out in the patio. So it's always been this way. The vitriol is a little bit different because you can see it and you record it. And looking at on the Facebook page, it's most of the same people talking to themselves about the same things. And they all say that the other shouldn't say this about that one and this about that one. I have been proud of this city my whole life. It's unfortunate that some things occur, but usually the arguments occur to make things better. The problem is there isn't honest dialogue anymore. And the problem is families are so busy that they don't have the time to get involved in their town. No one would welcome open dialogue more than me and the facts. The reality is to do all of the things that we would like to do in this city, everyone up here, we might want to do them in a different way, takes money. And that golden goat that laid at the end of the street down there is gone, and it's not coming back. So any of these things people promise you, ask them how they're going to pay for it. There's only one way that that occurs, and they got to come back to you and ask you. The question I've been asking is, what kind of city do you want to live in? And we're going to find that out. We're going to find that out coming forward. When I left office in 2002, I left a $9.8 million general fund balance to the city. Take all the other fund balances you want. That's the one that makes the city work. I came back into office in 2014. $2 million was in the general fund of this city. $2 million. Was that anybody's fault? No, it wasn't. I've told you the truth from the very beginning, and I'll tell you now. These are discussions that we have to have in the town. We have provided every service that we have ever had, and added some with the revenue that we had, because collectively up here, people made some tough decisions. With all the arguing about the Facebook and all the other things that's really not important, we got things done in this town. Our property values are up in this city. And you'll check and you'll see, things are happening very, very good in the city, despite the political bannering. It always gets worse at election time. So get your information, ask your questions, participate, come up here, argue with folks on Facebook if you wish. But before you go into that booth, as Mr. Peter Lynn suggests, have the facts and vote with what you think is best for the future of the city. Everything we're talking about has already occurred, is in the past. Where are we going to go forward in the town? And that's the kind of discussions we should be having up here. Now, who's in order, who's out of order, okay, whose turn it is to talk, who's on what committee, really doesn't matter. Let me say one final thing, all right? The dog park is part of our recreation proposal of the city. I have to tell you, I've been walking the streets of the city my whole life, and I'm back out there again now. There was a house with 4 Great Danes on it that I walked to the other day, and people have asked us for years if we would consider placing a dog park in the city of Brook Park. We're going to have that discussion. I do think it's needed, and we could argue about locations and rules and regulations, but if we don't keep going with amenities that will attract folks to cities, then we're going to be in trouble. We have to keep growing. We've always been progressive. There's been arguments against progress in this town for as long as I've been here. But progress came, and it came well for the town. So that is the end of my report. I'm glad that you're here this evening. Whether you're for me or you're against me, be here, because that's the most important thing. Because if we don't hear from you, we all think we're doing a wonderful job. I think that's true most of the time, but it's not true all the time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman, any questions to the mayor? Councilman Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, if you got a minute, I want to hit you with a couple things real quick. I was going to go to Ed with one or two of them. I was out walking on Zeman Ziegler this weekend, and Sylvia there too. And the sidewalk that Brennan brought up, and I guess obviously it's on Sheldon, on Ward 1. Will they be starting that project again pretty soon?
I'm sorry, and I apologize to Brenda because I didn't address that. They have commenced with this program. They're out there. And I believe they're over on the west end right now, moving towards this way. So they're in process of getting it done. And they have a contract that they have to complete in the completion time. And once they get going, once they logistically get it set up in the city, they move pretty fast. This contractor is new, won the bid this year with a bid that was good for us and good for the citizens, but one that I'm not certain was good for him. So that has been progressing, and they should be moving through the city pretty rapidly.
Okay, thank you. And one more thing I'd like, it's most a comment because I didn't get to, and I would thank Tom for concurring with me on, I got a problem when I go door to door, and it don't happen very often when I hear sometimes people give us a little shot, Brook Park a shot, and someone kind of did it on Sylvia, and then I stand to correct him, and he did say no. I think we are moving ahead. When I hear somebody say dysfunctional Brook Park government, or take a shot at the city, I don't care if it's at microphone or at the door, or anywhere where I'm at, and I'm at a lot of places, I kind of take an issue because I still think it's a great community, and that ain't a political speech, that ain't me talking for an election, that ain't anything. It's a good community. Okay, go out there and talk to a lot of people, go door to door, go to events, go to things, and talk to a lot of people and find out. That's where you find out what people think of Brook Park, and it's still a good community, no matter what other people might think, including probably Facebook, although a lot of them people on there are good people. But, Mayor, if I stand corrected, when we come in office here, back in 2014, we were at about 300 foreclosures in that area. Do I stand corrected? And maybe give me a little update.
That is correct, and our foreclosure issue is almost minimal. And what we're seeing is more and more folks aren't purchasing homes here to flip them. They're purchasing homes here to live here. Ted is preparing a report on that I will get to council. And before you leave the dysfunctionality issue, I suppose it's regular that the administration thinks that council can function better, and the council thinks that the administration can function better. So again, that's not out of the ordinary in my view. What I've found, to answer your question, is the same thing the American people want, is they want to get things done. That's what they want. They want their street fixed. They want their community to be safe. They want their schools to be run properly. We're not different than anybody else. So again, I think that too much attention is given to the keyboard courageous and not enough to the hard work that people are doing throughout the city.
And I concur with that, and definitely emphasize it at the door. 9 out of 10 people really care about getting their street safety forces, schools, exactly as what you just said. And I'll finish on this. If people looking at Sunday Plain Dealer, when you go back to the back of the business section now, they do have the prices, the home transition sales for Cuyahoga County and a couple other, I think Medina counties in there. And I see our home values are back up pretty good, because I know for a while they weren't. Nobody's worn. You're right. There's nobody to blame. I mean, previous administrations went through a Ford again, like we're going through, and a housing bust and then a recession. So I don't know where people get the idea that all of a sudden everything was all well and great for anybody. It wasn't. It was tough for them guys back then too. They might have made it seem like it, but they had a tough decisions and tough time back then too. So, Mayor, do I stand corrected at that? Our home values are back up a little bit above board, or, I mean, could we get something on that for a scale for the?
Yes, from the report that I saw, from last year to this year, they were up $10,000. And we're seeing a transition again. And the greatest example, it's pretty easy to determine what someone on the east end or the west end of town or even the central part of town, their property values. I think the greatest testimony to a city is you have folks living in our rental units, single parents, struggling, so that their kids can be in the Brook Park recreation system and their kids can go to Berea schools. I think that says most about a city, is the people who have the least come here and recognize maybe what we take for granted. So we're seeing property values. We're going to take down a house, the process is so on Wengler this week, the infamous house on Michael Drive that stood for so long. Okay, and another house we took down in Evanston that we're defending our lawsuit on, is to get these neighborhoods available and lots for people to build new houses in our town besides cleaning up the property. The building department, the rental registry that council passed, while it might aggravate some of the property owners, the landowners, the people who own the units, the citizens who move into them appreciate it. And the neighborhoods, we have two final problems that no one talks about, is the HMAC program, where many of our seniors who are really stressed to improve their properties and their kids don't come back and help them, getting those $5 grants. And I hope that next year we can do a lot more in that area. Or the very young people who inherited their grandparents' house and took a big bad loan against the house and couldn't pay it. And now are strapped with either losing it to some case, maybe a little bit more, less than before, but are taking care of the property. So if we can attack that problem on an individual basis and treat the people who are the problem with dignity, we're going to see a transformation. And I have to tell you, walking the city from 4 years ago to now, there's a lot of improvements that people have made in the town. We still have some issues, but there's a lot of improvement, a lot of things we should be proud of that we have accomplished, and we do a lot more things for our own than most cities as well. And again, we're doing that with, not as much as we used to have. So again, I think the report, when Ted gives it to you, I think council will be pleased, and I think the citizens will recognize what we are doing up here is making things better.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Council, any other questions to the mayor? Okay, before we leave, Mr. Mayor, I just have one question, because you talked about facts and open dialogue and facts, and there's one confusing fact that I hope you can clear up, is a recent publication, you made a straight talk that we have dealing with the police department. You said we have 36 officers on the street, the same number as when you took office in 2013. When I looked at the city report in 2013, we had 41 police officers, and in 2014 we had 38 police officers. I'm just trying to figure out in my head how you think 36 officers is the same as either 41 or 38.
Well, the same way you take a full-page ad on the hometown news and accuse me of committing every crime in the city. If you read the rest of my statement, it said this: Mayor Elliott hired 2 police officers that were on the payroll that were in school because of the retirements that were coming forward. So we had 38 officers. 36 were on the street. They were in school, and so when we negotiated with the police department to avert layoffs, we changed it to 12-hour shift, and there's 36 officers on the street. So while they were on the payroll, they weren't on the street, and I said, and it's true, and it's a fact, there's the same number of officers on the street today as when I took office.
So then the city report that says at the end of 2013, we had 41 police officers?
Okay.
Is not an accurate report?
When I took office in 2014, there were 36 police officers on the street. There was 38 on the employment rolls. 2 of them were in training. That's what it says, sir. It says when I took office. That's what it says.
It actually
and
said
that's
when you
fa-
took office in 2013, which you took office in 2014.
I'm sorry, sir, I made a typographical
Yes,
error.
I understand that. I'm not worried about that because that's just a little mistake. But when you say you have the same number as you have today, and when the report says you had 41 police officers, and then the next year it says you had 38 police officers, it's 2014 that you had 38, but you said that was at the end of 2014. So I'm not sure how many left, but I know it was reported that when you took office, there were 41 police officers, and you're telling the community that 36 is equal to 41, and, you know,
Mr. Chairman,
I'm not
point
sure
of
what-
order on yourself.
I'm asking a question.
Point of
How-
order on yourself,
What's your point
sir.
of order, Mayor?
Did you read what I put in the newspaper?
I did read it.
And what did it say?
I'll pull it out and read it.
Thank you. It said 36 officers on the street. There were 38 in employment. All of those other ones were subsequent. They were retiring and coming off. So there were 38. 2 of them were in training. So there were 36 on the street. That's what we have today. That's what we had then. Those officers were not on the street. As a matter of fact, they averted being laid off because they were in school.
Okay, so 41 is the same as 36.
No, sir, you keep saying that. You know what I said. You know what? This is your talent. This is your talent. You
Thank you,
distort.
Mr.
You quoted what I said, and what I said is factual. It's factual. Okay? You like to look at this kafir like it's the 10 Commandments coming down from God. Are there errors in it? There probably are. We had 36 officers when I took office on the street in 2014. That's what we have today. And I explained to you those 2 guys were hired prematurely, and I believe against sound financial advice, to replace people that they saw coming retiring in that year. And we had a substantial number of retirements that year. Okay, so there's 36 today, there was 36 then, on the street. Not employed, but on the street.
Not employed. Okay.
You know, that's what the citizen said. How many times you want me to answer the question?
Well,
It's not the answer you want,
No, it's
and that's
usually-
the problem,
If it's
sir.
straight talk, it's usually a little clearer, and 41
Sir,
is not as equal to
I'll
36,
straight
so
talk you
it's
any
straight
place
talk.
you'd like, and it's just a shame that you did not run for mayor, because that's what you would like to do, and you're not, okay? You're the council president to preside over meetings. Do your job. I'll be judged on mine, you'll be judged on yours.
That's correct, sir. Thank you.
You got it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other questions to the mayor? Seeing none, we'll move the agenda. That completes items under letter H. We'll move to letter I on page 2, which is reports and communications from departments, commissions, and other public officials. We'll go to the city engineer, Mr. Piatek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to update everyone on our construction projects. Snow road resurfacing work in Phase 1, that's basically just west of Dolores to West 130th Street. That's wrapped up. I know at the last meeting, I think we had some landscaping to take care of, but that's been taken care of in that section, and work is progressing in Phase 2, which is the western portion of the project. The 2017 repair program, as the mayor indicated, that started last week. A contractor did start over on Arden, Forest View, Parkland, over on the west side of town, on the streets north of Sheldon. He will be progressing in the easterly direction. I anticipate coming over to Wedgewood, to Haviland area, and picking up Miss Basham's property here in the near future. So, yeah, project is moving forward, and the work will be done this year with no issues. The Bowfin reconstruction project, that's the little short section between Doris and Fry. We paved the north side of that street. There's about 350 feet or so. We paved the north side of that today. Contractor will be working tomorrow on aprons and some block out areas. And then be looking to flip over and start the pavement removal on the south side later this week. So that project's moving along. Calvin reconstruction, we had our second main line pour today. South side of the pavement's in. There's some areas where there's some blockouts that we had to skip. But for the bulk of it, the pavement is in. Over there, we'll be working on aprons and some blockouts towards the middle end of this week, and hope to have those residents back in their driveways by Saturday morning. Of course, that's weather permitting, but that project is starting to wind down with the big work items. Middlebrook reconstruction, catch basin replacements, and the sewer spot repairs were completed last week before. Actually, this morning we started a pavement removal down by Wolf, working our way north through section 1, which is a little bit north of the park intersection. So that project is full bore right now. Keep in mind, if you're over in that area, that the direction of traffic is southbound on Middlebrook through the construction. Sylvia reconstruction work started a week or so ago with some catch basins and some sewer repairs. We're still working over there on those items. Anticipate pavement reconstruction starting in probably a week and a half, 2 weeks. So it was a lot of work going on around town. Lastly, I just want to reiterate again with the Public Works application that we anticipate submitting for the Holland Road reconstruction between Fry and Engel. We started working on that application to be submitted. The applications are due October 5th, and I hope that the legislation authorizing that application and the work comes to be introduced at tonight's meeting. So if there's any questions, on that project, if you could, let me know. It is a bit time sensitive. So that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Piatek. Council, are there any questions to the engineer? Mr. Scott?
I got one quick one. Ed, I was walking on Middlebrook a couple days ago, and the people over there have notification of where they can park over there.
Yes.
Okay, because a couple of them were asking me, and I thought that there was something that went out, but I didn't see it, so.
Yes, typically, on projects like that, we'll send out flyers, kind of giving everybody a little, heads up that, hey, we're coming. We encourage people to park in, their across the street neighbors' driveway to help them out, and the favor can be returned, when their side of the street's being taken out. But they can park on the side streets. There's quite a few side streets over there between Carroll and, Wolf and Middlebrook, and, so they can park wherever they can find a spot, basically. Just keep it away from the hydrants, and police and fire are aware of the project, and they're aware of the parking situations in these cases.
So they don't have to notify the police that they're parked there?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Councilman Mancini?
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to Ed, a couple of things if I could real quick. On Middlebrook and Sylvia, I know the project's just started, but knock on wood, I haven't heard too much. Then again, I kind of already walked Sylvia. I haven't done Middlebrook as much, but so far so good. No wrong ways, this and that yet, but I'm sure it's probably going to come a little bit, but good job by the guys over there. I want to bring up something, two things real quick, and then I'm done. 237, like the striping on that, I had a resident ask me, like, they're kind of faded. Do we do that? Is that the county? Is that the state? I know when, a certain road or route or goes through two cities or two counties, a state, two cities, county. Do we do that? Do we have anything to do with that or not?
I'd have to double check and look, but I believe that the city has maintenance responsibilities for the state route. I know that the state resurfaced section over by the airport, it was, if it was late last year, in anticipation of the convention coming, I know they wanted to, pretty it up, and so they would have got new pavement markings over there. So maybe the section you're referring to is a little bit further south, near Sheldon. But I could double check, but I do believe that the city would have maintenance responsibilities for the striping over in that section. It would not be the county.
Okay, we got a few things out of the way tonight, and one of them was the questions of the mayor about the sidewalks there. The last one, there was some things, and I was doing a graduation or something, and a girl asked me about that. And if you're going down Ingle Road, if you're going south towards Middleburg, why there isn't a turn signal to make a left. And I could probably think of various answers, and I kind of, again, hit her with, well, it's a multi-city road, there's more than one city. And again, when you talk to the people maybe in the condos, and maybe Councilman Troyer would know a little more than me, they don't want, if we do it one way, there might be a log jam somewhere else. And is it, and just for them 20 minutes in the morning or whatever it is, an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, is it worth that, having that turn signal there if, traffic's gonna block up longer from another way? I'm putting it out there, that's all, because it did come up, one more time after that too. Again, not my ward, but, I just kind of want to know for general information on that.
Just for clarification, we're talking southbound angle at Sheldon? A left
Yeah,
turn
because with
to
the schools now,
eastbound?
and you got, people cut back out of Fort here, Sandhurst, they come Sheldon, all different ways, and, now we got almost three cities there going to that middle school, Fort Intermediate.
I
Fort
guess
Intermediate, yeah.
without looking into it, my initial suspicion would be that it wouldn't meet the warrants for an exclusive left turn movement, but for certain, I couldn't say that, so I could take a look at the old traffic. I believe it was in '98 or so. There was some traffic reports that were done in anticipation of the signal project. I could take a look to see what those warrants indicated at that location and get back to you.
Okay, I've been on that enough and I've talked enough. That's all. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Council, any other questions to the engineer? Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Through the chair to engineer, Mr. Piatek. I've talked many times about 237 in Sheldon with the turn signals, and also Sheldon and Angle. Is it your department that usually looks into that looks into getting a study done? Is that you that would do that?
If we were authorized by the city to conduct a study of the intersection, yes, we would do that.
All right. Has the administration approached you to do any of that, to get a traffic study done in either of those intersections?
I have not been requested to do a traffic study at those locations. I have been asked to look into the intersection at State Route 237 and Sheldon, and trying to cooperate with the city of Berea in getting that intersection resurfaced so that it makes it a little more easier to travel through there. And at that time, the thought would be to try and look at this, what maybe some alternatives would be, and to see if Berea had any input on some of the signal operations over there.
Okay. And in order for you to initiate a traffic study, is that usually come in the form of legislation, or just a okay from the administration?
I would say that I would prepare a proposal and to do the study, and that would come to council in the form of legislation.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And then also on the Snow Road project that we're looking for, try and get some grant money, has the administration asked you to look into possibly getting some monies, federal monies, by adding bike lanes or anything? Has the administration instructed you to look into that at all? I mentioned that a few times.
No, not on Snow Road.
I'm sorry. Did I say Snow? I meant Hollins. Excuse me.
On Holland Road?
On Howland, yeah, that project where last year we were right there, then at the end, the rug was pulled out from under us.
Yes, okay.
So, yeah, adding bike lanes to Holland, has administration instructed you to look into that and look to get monies that way if it doesn't work the way we're trying?
I've looked at it and looked at some funding sources there, and from the studies and from the we had a greenway study down at the Abram Creek. It was through NOACA, and there was some recommendations made for some bike lanes throughout the city, and I believe in that section there it was called best for like an on-road bike lane. And in looking at that section, there's telephone poles in the right of way and in between the sidewalk and the curb, and I feel as though it would be very cost prohibitive to do any type of off lane, off pavement type of trail. So yeah, I've looked at it. I don't know that I've been formally directed to investigate, but I have looked into it.
Yeah, what would be looking for is just adding 3 feet to each curb, and getting a substantial amount of money. I mean, obviously, we're not going to put a lot of money into doing something like that, but if there's a possibility of getting some federal funds that would help us get most of the road complete just by adding those lanes. Is that a possibility?
No. I mean, to be quite honest with you, you're not going to ask for 3 foot of pavement and expect the feds or any other agency to pay for the entire pavement width. So, if you're going to add 3 foot, the contribution from any type of agency would be for that 3 foot. They're not going to pay for an entire lane or 2 lanes.
Okay, and you've checked on that, and that's the way it stands?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Council, any other questions to the engineer? Thank you, Mr. Piatek. We'll move to the Service Director, Mr. Kayat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One announcement we got, I was informed that Spafford Road Hill will be closed from September 11th to September 15th for bridge repair down at the bottom of the hill there. So residents will see that marked up to be closed up. They could have to use Cedar Point as an alternate route. Other than the day-to-day operations of the service department, we're holding our own. We're doing all right. Councilman Mancini, the service department does paint 237 along with Smith Road, Snow Road, Hummel Road, Holland Road, all the roads, 130th, Brook Park Road, and I got the striper reserved for next week and the week after, so we'll be getting on that. Other than that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kayat. Councilor, any questions to the Service Director? Councilman Bergio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hate to bring it up, but I just need to do it. In preparation for wintertime, how are our trucks and plows and machinery and that type of thing, and ordering salt. I'm sure you're prepared for that already. How are we doing on that front?
Yeah, we got our salt contract back in May. We're in good shape with that. The mechanics have been working on the plow trucks right from April, and then when during the winter time they work on the grass gear, the summer gear, and the summertime they work on the salt stuff. So if you look at the Border Control, there's several items in there that we passed tonight for repairs for salt spreaders and such.
Thank you. I noticed there's some orange barrels on Smith near Sylvia. Are we doing some striping there or something? Right in the turning lane, I think. It's been there. Maybe Ed knows. I don't know. Okay.
I'm not aware of that.
Ed, can I ask you what those orange barrels are for?
If I may, the orange barrels on Smith are to restrict a left turn movement onto Sylvia, so that, because we have Sylvia closed in the westbound direction.
Okay, thank you. That's right. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Mancini?
And I like them barrels there. It'll stop a lot of headaches and phone calls. Lou, don't shoot the messenger on that one there about he just drives, he takes his wife to the airport, and he asked me, brought up that 237, but I do want to ask you, how are we doing with the dumping the rubbish and the yard waste down at the service garage? We doing pretty good there on that still?
The grass hasn't been growing, but we're getting a lot of shrubs and tree limbs, that type of stuff.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr.
And they're,
Chairman. Go ahead.
bulk Monday is this coming Monday, let the residents know. If you plan on putting something out, give us a call by Friday, so we can get you scheduled.
Thanks, that's a good point, thank you. I know at that holiday, people got confused. I think maybe they thought maybe yesterday, I don't know, because I had a phone call or two on that, but thanks for bringing it up, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Council, any other questions of the Service Director? Seeing no other questions, thank you, Mr. Kayat. We'll move to the Safety Director, Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last May, Councilman Burgio brought up the Lakewood program they had for their autism registry for the police department. And we're prepared to move forward in the Department of Public Safety with the police to take the time. I'm going to have it on our city website that anybody has a person with autism can register. It will go on our dispatching system with the Parma Dispatching Center, that they get a call from a resident or a house with somebody with this happening to them. We'll have the information online. We can advise the police officer what to expect, hopefully abate some emergency. We're going to do some specialized training in it. Councilman McDonald mentioned to me she'd be willing to help to get this kicked off. We have done some work on it. We're prepared to go forward. I talked to the mayor today, and I think in the next couple weeks, we'll have the online registration on the city website. Merely have to fill it out, and it'll be registered, and it'll be part of the computerized program that we have at the dispatch center. Hopefully, then if somebody has a crisis, we'll have people trained how to handle it and maybe make the situation better. We'll hope to have that ongoing in about 2, maybe 3 weeks, but it will be online, and there'll be some information posted on it. The second thing that we're going to have is Parma Dispatch has offered a program called Are You Okay? And I'm kind of excited about this one because this program will allow people that are elderly or shut-ins or disabled persons or persons who live alone where their children or somebody responsible could sign up where at least once a day the dispatch center will call them to make sure everything's okay. And they'll call between the hours that you specify what time you want to get called, between 6 a.m. and 10 o'clock at night. Someone will call, and it'll be recorded that they checked on you. So if you've got an aged mother or father and you want to have the police periodically check on them, this system's available. Once again, you can register online or go to the police department once it's set up, fill out the form, and someone will call them every day. And if there's a problem, we'll dispatch an officer or the rescue squad if necessary and notify the person who's responsible to take care of them. It's no cost to the city to do this. The dispatchers at the Parma Dispatch Center will do this in the course of the day. You merely indicate the time you want them to call and check on your relative, and they'll do it for you. And hopefully we'll have that set up in the next couple weeks. The one nice thing is you get to pick the time, and within a few minutes they'll call. They call as early as 6 in the morning or as late as 10 at night. So anytime that you pick them, you want them to call, they'll call them. And that program can begin shortly. You have to fill the form out either online or take it to the police department. The police chief has promulgated a policy already that's in place to kick off this program. And hopefully it's a program where our senior citizens can benefit and also be able to check on them from time to time. So, Mr. Chairman, those are the 2 programs that we're going to be adding. And any questions that you have, I'll be pleased to answer. If not, that completes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Council, are there any questions of the Safety Director? Councilman Burgio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, you beat me to the punch. I was going to ask you for an update on that, so I'm glad that you provided that. And I'm really grateful for all the work that you have done over the period of a year with the police chief and everyone involved. I think it's going to be a definite asset for first responders, give them a little extra, some tools for our community. And I'm really excited that Councilwoman McDonald has the expertise in that area, which I'm sure she could be helpful, and possibly any type of instruction or training that would be helpful too. I think she'd be happy to do that, hopefully. The only one question, that's not only for residents of Brook Park? I mean, could it be from other people, like, say, grandkids who live or visiting? Can you put anybody on that registry?
I imagine you can put anybody in the registry as long as you indicate how long they'll be here. I know that, for example, if anybody's in one of the schools, in the school district, I would imagine we could register that as well, so we would know. So my answer, I guess, is yes.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for all the work that you've done. I'm really happy that you've done that. I appreciate it very much. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Council, any other questions? To the Safety Director. Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. To the chair, to the, excuse me, Safety Director. Mr. Burns, this just came up, so, the Spafford, being closed, did you have any inclination to go ahead and have extra patrols out there on Rupo and Cedar Point during this, time period when Spafford's closed?
Well, as you say, Councilman, it has just come up, but we have somebody patrolling out there anyway. You certainly could visit with the police chief and talk about the situation. I'm not sure what the total impact will be. I'll check that out tomorrow, and we'll take whatever appropriate measure that we would deem necessary.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you, Mr. Burns. We'll move to the Law Department. Mrs. Horvath.
Thank you very much, Council President. Last time I did a formal report, the city had 3 pending civil cases. 2 are in the Court of Common Pleas and 1 was in federal court. The status of these 3 cases pretty much remains the same. I expect after the 15th, though, there may be some changes, and so therefore I'll do an updated written report so the council will have that report by September 19th. Just a couple housekeeping issues. On August 23rd, council received a verbal request for public records from an anonymous resident. I took a look at that request, and I believe that sometime maybe around the 29th, the following Tuesday, I emailed all of the council members with regard to that request. After looking at the request, which involves a period of about 22 months, 6 different departments within the city, and numerous individuals, it seems that the request is overly broad and burdensome. So what I intend to do is draft an opinion and direct that to all of the council members and also the 6 departments or divisions of the city which are affected, so they'll have a clearer idea of the issues involved here. And I hope I'll have that out certainly by the 19th. Last housekeeping issue has to do with the website. Last meeting that we had, there was a request that the law department try and determine whether or not the city owned the name, the domain name, and also determine some other issues associated with the website and some questions that council had. So at this point in time, it was my understanding that I would have the username and password with regard to the website. I have since learned a little bit more, and my technical knowledge is a little bit better now. I believe that there are 2 usernames and passwords. One is for the domain site. The other username and password would be for the actual website. And my understanding of it is it's kind of like Huntington Bank would hold your mortgage, but you have another mortgage company that comes in and services your mortgage. So the domain name registers whoever owns a particular website, and the website administration would go through another entity. So it seems as though Domain by Proxy LLC is the company that would have registry of who the owner of the website is. And Geek Storage would be the company that allows a webmaster or administrator to go ahead and make changes and take care of the day-to-day administration of that particular website. So we would need both the username and the passwords for both of those entities in order to confirm whatever information or answer the questions that we currently have. I have sent via fax requests to both of those entities with some documentation showing that the city has paid funds to them. Both are divisions of GoDaddy, asking them to please give us that information. I don't know if they will or not. Certainly with the domain site, they'll only give us the information if we are the customer. I appreciate Council President Astorino sending over about 47 pages of information. I think a lot of the information that was asked with regard to statistics and different technical aspects were answered in that information. I see that there was some information which was redacted, which for me is fine. I'm not concerned about who's accessing the website. I'm not concerned about who is emailing the website. What I am concerned about, if we are going to shut the website down, this is a piece of intellectual property that we believe the city owns, and we need to get these questions answered before we do shut it down. It would be similar to the city owning a vehicle and just parking it on someone's tree lawn and saying, well, we don't know if we own it or not, but we're going to leave it there and we're not going to pay any attention to it. I think the city has a responsibility, if it owns property, to be good stewards of that particular piece of property. And in looking at the information provided after reviewing it, with some help from the gentleman who is our tech guy here at the city, it seems to me that it really raises more questions than it answers. So I wanted to report that to council. I don't know if I will get a response from either Geek Storage or Domains by Proxy with regard to what I have faxed them. But at this point in time, after reviewing the 47 pages of material, I can't honestly say that any of the documents show whether or not the city is the owner of the domain name. And that takes care of the housekeeping items that I have tonight. Thank you.
Council, any questions to the law department? Councilwoman McDowell.
Through the chair to the law director. So if the response back from the company is that they're not going to give you that information, sorry, what are our options of obtaining that information?
Well, actually, I think you probably have three options, and we have discussed two of the options in our prior meeting. One option would be to subpoena the information, and I think we had a lengthy discussion about the legality of that. We also talked about possibly someone filing a mandamus action. And after talking with the individual who's the technician and who assists the city with our IT issues, if we had the domain, username, and password, then we would be able to use that to go in to the settings and see who's the owner and check the other settings and so forth. So I don't have that. I don't know that anyone may or may not have that. Certainly, though, whoever is the owner of the website would have the username and password.
Do we need to have both of that information to close and turn off the website?
I think it would be best if you did, both ends. I don't know if there would be a username and password for what is known as a cPanel. My understanding is that's what you go in to perform whatever administrative tasks that you might need to perform. But, so those are the three options.
And Ms. McDonald, I mean, if I could just add, I mean, I know she's getting some, I've got still some questions that I've submitted on the work ticket that they haven't responded back to me yet. So as soon as I get the answers from the people, I was planning to share that information. So I'm still trying to get some information also.
So is the website still up?
It's still active, but there's no activity on it.
Okay. no live stream, just, so it's like sitting there
Well, the
essentially?
live stream, I think, has a link to the I'm not sure how it works,
Okay.
but, well, okay, I mean, you can access it, but there's nothing that we're doing other than there was a link that was provided to it.
Okay, but that's not regular admin, that's not username and password for admin, that would be domain.
I
Yeah.
believe so, yes.
Okay.
But I just want to let you know that I'm still trying to acquire some of that information also, and they haven't responded to me yet. Mrs. Horvath, go ahead.
Yes, I just wondered if the username and password that you have is just for the website for Geek Storage, or is it also for domain by proxy?
I don't have the ability to answer that question because I'm not the language. I'll find out for you.
Okay, if you could email me with that information.
Councilman Scott?
Yeah, real quick, through the chair to the law director. We did ask for this information 2 weeks ago, right? And didn't we not cut like September 5th to be our date to try and get this information back so we can move forward with this, to close this this thing has been dragging for so long. We've got to get this thing closed. How much longer do we have to wait, or how much longer should we wait to get these responses? We've got an investigation going. The questions were asked by the investigator, and like I said, we had a date of September 5th to get these answers, and it's still going on. So what do you foresee as a suitable time frame? Or, I mean, we gotta do something on this. This door's been open for too long.
Through the chair to Councilman Scott, you're correct. We did have, today is a hard date for having that information provided. My understanding was that I would be provided with the username and password. I don't know very much about how to use that information to gain the answers that you would like, so I was going to ask the assistance of the technician if he would be able to do so. But I guess the main question as to how long this may or may not take goes back to who has the domain username and who has the domain password. Does the city have that? Is that something that we actually have? I would assume that we have the username and password for the website, and that certainly could be provided so that we could get some answers. I'm really not worried about looking at anyone's emails or tracking anything, and certainly once these questions could be answered, the passwords could be changed so that the appropriate people would have access to them. But absent using that route or subpoena route, I really can't give you an accurate time frame as to when it may or may not be done. I mean, obviously we hit Labor Day weekend, and you never really know with a lot of these companies when you're going to get an answer. Most of them just have a fax. They don't, certainly Geek Storage, I don't believe has a phone number that could be accessed. So I can try and follow up with domain by proxy by telephone, but I don't know if they'll release the information or not. And I'm sorry that my answer isn't as definite an answer as I wished I could give you, Councilman.
Okay, but just before we move off of his question, I mean, just another point of information. I mean, I understand, we had the list of questions. Like I said, we're working on getting those answers. But I will remind all of council that there was one question in there that was asked. It was question number 6 that you asked about the email setup. And after I provided the other documents, I noticed another email that information was actually provided in April of 2016. So some of the questions that have been asked, as I stated at the last meeting, they have been answered. I would ask for, I mean, we had a date of September 5th. I made my best efforts to get some of those things, but the answers didn't come to me yet. When they do come, I will share them with all of council. So I just would ask some of your patience on that, but also realize that there are some questions that are being asked that were answered quite a while ago. So there is some of that to also be considered, you know, so, okay.
Sure.
On this subject, Mayor? Okay, go ahead, Mayor.
I asked the law director, who originally contracted for the service for the website for the city?
I would say after looking at the information I was provided, it appears that initially Councilwoman McCormick had
Why doesn't
contracted.
somebody just call her up and ask her and solve the problem, so we can move on? Seems pretty simple. She was original contact. Julie's very capable in that area. I think if someone maybe called her up and asked her politely, she just might tell you. Okay, because it poses a problem in that the only one that can enter into a contract for the city is me. And we've also always given deference if council passed something for themselves. Also, the finance director apparently is paid on reimbursement on 2 occasions for something that we don't possess a contract or ownership of. So I think if someone would just call her and ask her, she might volunteer the information, then we can move on, because it's holding us up in trying to facilitate council on our website. I'm not going to get into the merits of why this was changed in the beginning. But that seems to me the pretty simple solution, that she may have that answer, and we could just solve the problem right away.
Before you get there, I'd just like, I mean, what is holding up the city of Brook Park from having the council information? I don't,
Okay, no one seems to be able to identify who owns the domain. Councilman McCormick's expertise was in this. She set it up.
no, I understand.
Okay, all
I
I'm saying
understand
is,
that part of it,
why
Mayor.
don't you,
But
as a
I-
council president, call her up and ask her how we can resolve this problem?
I thought
If
I
she-
heard-
That's what I'm saying.
I know, I understand that part of it, but what I thought I heard, and maybe I misunderstood what you said, but you said that the city's being held up on the council website. There's information on the cityofbrookpark.com website that has council. I was wondering what
Okay, what I'm
what
saying-
our operation has to do, anything about holding up
Nothing,
council
except
exercise.
for the fact Michelle's working with Jennifer to get the email for the individual members of council going forward. That's what I'm saying. And apparently I don't know if there is an issue. I didn't raise this issue. I don't know what it is. All I'm saying is we keep talking about who owns it. Apparently, there's only one person that has that answer that could solve that problem for us. I think if she was asked in a professional way, I have no reason to believe that she wouldn't help us.
Councilman Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concern is pretty simple. Council took action to close this website down, and unfortunately, it certainly would appear as if we don't own it, so we can't close it down. So my only concern, I don't know about the rest of the council, is to identify who that person is and order them to close it down. They're using our name. We don't have a website anymore, but we do, and it's not ours, and somebody else is operating it. The council by vote said shut it down, and I expect that to happen. Whatever it takes. Madam Law Director, what's it gonna take for us to get this thing shut down once and for all and get this off the plate, and then we could move on? It doesn't matter who owns it anymore. Who cares? Who cares who owns it? Let's just get rid of it.
If in your answer, you could also maybe address the questions that we've asked you as far as what we need to do about any record retention that's on that site too.
You can only close it down if you're the owner. We haven't been able to determine who the owner is. The information I see make it, at least to me, doubtful that it would be the city. If you were the owner, you probably would know the username and the password for the domain. And apparently, we don't seem to have that information. So while we would like to shut it down, we probably can't because we're not the owner. Just similar fashion, if you would like to sell a car but you're not the titled owner, you're not going to be able to transfer title. So I certainly can reach out to Councilwoman McCormick. My understanding is that has previously been tried, but I will try again. And the only way for sure that you're going to determine whether or not the city is the owner would be through the other 2 methods that I discussed. And if it turns out that we are not the owner, then we'll have to decide what would be best for the city to do from that point forward.
depending on who the owner may or may not be.
But does this name have Brook Park City Council as any type of a title, or is it called Brook Park City Council?
My understanding is yes, it is Brook Park City Council.
And the person who may or may not own it is not a member of Brook Park City Council, nor do they have the authorization to use that name. Are they using the city seal in any type of a marking? I haven't been on it. I haven't even looked at it. So I think it's time we get to the bottom of it and shut it down. I think it's clear to me. We're not looking for a needle in a haystack. We're looking for the Statue of Liberty in somebody's backyard. This is pretty simple. We need to get this done and get it over with.
Can down
And
the
as one
street.
councilman, whatever councilmanic action that needs to be taken, I'm all in. Let's get it done. It's not that difficult. It can't be that difficult.
Well, I'd be more than happy to do whatever council directs me. But absent subpoena, there'd be no way really that I could determine whether the city owns it or not, other than being provided with the domain username and password.
Ms. Director, could you address I mean, you've answered his questions, but I had asked about, the office had been asked about record retention that might be that might be stuff there. So before it gets shut down and all that stuff, and we lose what we might be required to retain, your office was asked what we need to do about that, and I'm not aware of us receiving an answer yet.
Well, I'm still checking into that, but of course, most of your records, I believe, at this point in time are also duplicated on the city website. I believe the city has your minutes and your agenda and your various...
I understand that stuff, but it was specifically dealing with email communications, because here's actually something that some of the members of council don't necessarily understand too, because I was told this week by a resident that they were having a conversation with a council person who said they never used the Brook Park City Council email. There was no emails on theirs on that. Now, that's obviously a misunderstanding about the council person, because every email I sent to all the members of council, I sent to your brookparkcitycouncil.com email. And it was forwarded to your other emails, but they all received brookparkcitycouncil.com emails. But so some of the members of council don't seem to understand that they did have an email through the website. And the question is, I understand, that yes, the adopted legislation, the agendas, all that stuff that was posted on the website is duplicated, but the emails weren't duplicated. So the question is, what do we have to do as far as retaining any of those records?
Well, you probably have to look at all the emails and determine which ones you don't need to, and I'll yield to Councilwoman McDonald, who seems to have some knowledge in this area.
Is that okay?
Go ahead.
So basically, because it's a server, it's going to have backup that all you'd have to do is send a ticket at your level if you have the administrator rights. And most likely, everything is being stored in the cloud already, and it's just a matter of retrieving all that information from the cloud and putting it either in like a flash drive or a zip drive or something like that. Because everything gets archived, depending on where that archived, how you access that archive is all we have to figure out. If assuming we can do that at the level of the administrator who would be able to upload information on the website.
If you could help craft the question for me, I will be more than happy to submit the work ticket for you,
I
okay?
totally can help you with that.
Thank you. Councilman Mancini?
Thanks. Quick question to you, Mr. Chairman. Did Julie run this website for a little bit back in 2016? Because I believe you sent me my emails, I believe you would have, but did she run this for a little bit?
She was the administrator in 2016.
Okay, well, maybe she didn't send. I mean, because I don't know if I was the one that said it to somebody, maybe. I mean, I'll always own up.
No, what I'm saying, Councilman, and I didn't know who, because actually the person that was talking to me didn't say who the council person was, so I don't even know if it was yours.
Right.
But every email I sent to the members of council would have gone to T. Troyer, J. Powers, but it would have been at brookparkcitycouncil.com. There was a, and if you looked at the April of 2016 explanation, there was the ability to put into that site that email would then be forwarded to your personal email if you wanted to.
Like a forward.
It would just be automatically forwarded to whatever email. If you're using another email, I think you use, is it a Yahoo, Carl?
I use Yahoo,
C.
yeah.
Bergio at Yahoo? You would have put that?
Carl Virgil at Yahoo.
Okay, it might have gone directly to that, you know. Yours might have gone to whatever you had told her to set it up with to do that.
I would hope. I
So,
mean, I would
well-
hope, would that be the case, through the chair to Councilwoman McDonald?
Well, it never came back to me that it didn't. The only ones that ever came back to me that they weren't deliverable was to
My
Councilman
guess is-
Salvatore because, hold on. It was Councilman Salvatore because I think your Gmail, or was it Gmail or Yahoo you had gone bad and you never opened up another one. So it went there, but it always came back that it wasn't deliverable to that one. It never came back that anybody else didn't get it. So
Including 216?
all my emails that I sent, yes. 2016, 2017. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can we start with the username and the password for the website to answer some of these questions while we're working on where the username and the password is for the domain?
Could you repeat that again?
Sure. I think it was the 22nd in our meeting, you had offered to provide the username and the password for the website. And I think I had sent you a couple emails over asking you for that. I mean, that at least would be a place to start where perhaps we could get some of these questions answered, where we're seeing if, anyone has the username and password for the
I understand
domain.
your question now. Thanks for repeating it because I didn't catch that. I understand what I said, but there are some concerns after I passed on the information on either calls that I got or information I got that I'm not, until I get my answers from the computer people, I'm not going to turn over my information for that simply because there was concerns. You expressed tonight that you weren't concerned about the stuff that was redacted. That position wasn't shared by everybody that had that information. Some people felt that they should have access to the IP addresses, and I was contacted by many people that used our website that they didn't want their IP addresses being provided as a document. They didn't feel like that was appropriate. So until I get some questions answered, I'm not going to to do that.
Well,
I'm continuing to work to find out the answers so that I can do that, and at that once those answers are provided, I'll be more than happy to share the information.
If I may, so your position has changed from the last meeting based on the fact that you want to try and preserve privacy issues for whomever may have accessed the website, is that it?
That's close to it, yes.
Okay, because, what I would propose is actually, we're probably having the tech gentleman look at it. I don't think that he's going to do anything with it that would be untoward. I certainly probably wouldn't even know what I'm looking at, yet alone being able to do anything with it. So I think that actually is a pretty reasonable way to try and resolve some of these things. Because the only other thing that I would have to be able to suggest to get all of this information would in fact be legislative subpoenas to Geek Storage and domain by proxy.
Councilman Scott?
Yeah, one real quick question to the chair, to Law Director Horvath. How much longer are we going to kick this can down the street? Why can't we set a date next Tuesday? You contact Mrs. McCormick. She is the last known owner of this domain name. Am I not correct on that?
Well, we haven't seen any information from the domain, but
is she
it
not
looks
the-
like she opened up the website, and logic would say that she also did the domain name. And I'm happy to take whatever steps that you wish for me to take, but it's council's choice as to set the deadline or the procedure that you would like to have me follow.
Why don't we just, what's suggested, contact Mrs. McCormick if she doesn't provide any information? Next week, next Tuesday, we issued a subpoena and get done with this. We've been playing game too long on this thing now. Let's move forward. Contact Ms. McCormick, make the attempt. If she does not answer your question, give you information, then we proceed with the subpoena. Get this thing done and over.
Wow.
Who's been playing games, Councilman?
It's been,
We were
we were told
working to get
September 5th we were
information.
going to get an answer for these 8 questions. September 5th, we haven't gotten another question. Now you've made a request, please give me more time to get these answers. How much more time are we going to need? Let's get this thing closed. We've got a website on the 15th of September, if I'm not mistaken, we shut the website down. The website is still up. We are having issues about what the process we have to do. Let's get these answers. If it takes a subpoena to get these answers, to get this thing moving forward, to get it shut down, let's do it. This is just going on way too long. I'm done. Thank you. And you can come back and you can slam me all you want, so come on.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman Powers.
I wonder why we can't just set up a new website, domain, whatever, and use it and worry about getting this straightened out sometime later. If it's holding us up, then just start a new one. Why can't we do that?
Why can't we just start a new one?
Right.
What council decided to do was, I'm not sure which word you want to use, but by deleting Council Rule 28, they took away the authority of council to have its own website. So what I believe is happening is, there's a council website on the cityofbrookpark.com, and the clerk shares the information with them to post on there. Correct?
Right.
You share the information with them then. You did.
On the city's website?
Yes, you shared it before anyway, so it was a
Yes.
joint filing anyway. One more question? Go ahead.
Really quick, just to answer. So good thing is that City Council has a page on the City of Brook Park website that we basically can take everything that was on that website and put it on the web page. Then we can also get cityofbrookpark.com email addresses so that we're all uniform through the City of Brook Park. So that part is pretty cut and dry. It's just being able to close something to make sure, like as Council President said, if we don't know who owns that domain, we don't know who has access to get those personal emails, and I'm 100% with you. No one needs to know who sent emails and received emails from that website, but right now, someone has access to that. So the faster we can get this closed, the safer that information, not saying that the information is wrong or bad or whatever, but it can be ended.
Councilman Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the chairman, just one quick question, might be a real simple one, might be, you being the administrator, can't you shut that down?
Alls I'm s- I understand you can't hear me, and
Yeah, I want
apparently
this
other
over
people
as much
can't
as
too.
anyone else.
You know, earlier we heard residents talking about questions being asked and asked and asked the same questions. They've been asked numerous times, and you keep asking the same questions. I keep giving you the same answers, and we're working towards it. And the main thing is, in my mind, there's 2 things. First off, our website was mainly just a public posting place. That's how it was utilized, and an access to an email for council members. But as the administrator, there's been no activity on, as far as we're not posting anything, we're not doing anything, and we're trying to, making a good effort to shut it down without causing us a problem. As the law director said, you can't just, if you had a piece of property, you can't just get rid of it. You have to get rid of it in the right way. I'm working to try to get that done. And questions have been answered. You gave a list of 8 questions at the last meeting. Many of those questions have been answered. I understand that a comment was made that not all of them have been answered, but I don't know which ones weren't answered. That wasn't provided to me. It's just saying, well, you didn't answer all of them. Well, tell me which ones you didn't answer, because I'll make, if the 47 pages didn't contain the answer, I'll find out what else. I gave all the information I had, and I told you I'm in the process of trying to get more, but there seems to be some vagueness coming from, on searching things. There is no, I don't share some of this. I think we're, council's making much ado about nothing, because it truly was just, it was a public posting place. It was something that cost this city $94 a month, and $94 a year. We talk about concentrating on things that are minuscule. You're going to use the ad nauseum on something that is just $94 a year, and you're focusing all these efforts and resources on here, and all this time. Huh? I understand the other part about it, but the questions keep getting asked and asked and asked.
$94 was paid
Somebody sitting up here, sitting there saying games are being played and making his accusation that games are
Sir,
being
we
played.
have yet to have an answer to the domain owner. We've asked that for point of order.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
What's your point of order, Councilman?
Speaking out of turn.
Okay.
Given the floor.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr.
can I
Mayor.
ask you a question? Okay, you and I are both not expert web domain operators, okay? So therefore, Julie McCormick came with her expertise. That's not an issue. And she provided for the establishment of the council web system. Is that correct? We all agree on that? Is that factual?
I believe so, Mayor.
Okay, all right. So you as a council president work with her. Have you ever asked her the answer to that question since she's left here?
The question that got asked tonight was
I'm
the
not,
first-
forget that. I'm asking
Not
you.
forget that.
I'm
It was the
asking
first-
you, I asked you a
I've
question.
talked to her about some of it, and that
I
helped
asked
clear
you
up some of it.
Okay.
I'm just hearing now the law director saying these are the questions
I'm asking
we
you a
need.
question, not the law director, if I may continue. So,
I'm
question.
answering your question in the way I can best answer your question, Mayor.
Okay.
You don't like the answer,
okay.
that's not my...
Did you or did you not ask Julie McCormick who owned the website when you took it over as council president?
When I took it over, no, that question was never asked until...
Okay, well, let me ask you this question. Okay,
I think I answered it, the last one, that I think Brook Park City Council owns the website. That's what I thought, and I'm trying to find out if that's the answer.
Well, I think the best person that could answer it is the person who contracted as a city agent, I suppose, for that work. She could best answer it better than anybody. And if it's been transferred, she's probably the only one can answer that question as well. To me, I was against this change to begin with, but it seems to me pretty simple, and I think you can get the answer to that question. And for some reason, you're avoiding that. She seems the best people. So then the question is, if we don't own it, how are we reimbursing you and reimbursing her for expenses that we don't own the contract to? And $94 isn't a hill of beans. It's getting at the truth. Why don't you just call Julie up and ask her? I believe that if she's asked politely, in a professional manner, she would answer that question. Because I don't think the answer to the question is that big a deal, even if Lucifer himself owns the site. We'll know then, and then we'll move on. Okay, and I'm not suggesting that you have done anything wrong. You, like I, are new to the web world, and that's why we hire expertise. But I'm just saying is...
I understand what you're saying,
Okay,
Mayor.
so
and
get the answer to the
My
question.
suggestion would be, and my request would be, I've asked Mrs. McDonald if she would provide the question format. I would ask anyone else, whether it's the law department or that.
Ask Julie.
Ask
Julie.
What I'm.
Just ask Julie.
I know, but if you would let me finish my statement, my thing is, give me the question you want me to ask Julie. Give me the specific.
Who owns the website and was it transferred? That seems pretty simple.
Because
If it was, who was it transferred to?
Because I did have some conversation with Julie about the one question. It said something about, and I don't have it in front of me, the one about who created the website type stuff, and it didn't fit into, the question wasn't actually an accurate question. Sometimes you ask a question, it's not necessarily a true question, it's a false question. And so what I'm saying is, Mrs. McDonald's working out a question. If the law department wants an answer to a question, submit it to me. I'll call her up and ask her and get the answer. But the last thing I want to do is come here with something and say, well, that wasn't really the question we wanted asked. Give me the question you
Mr.
want to ask
President.
specific. If you sit there and say, who owns the question, who owns the
I
website?
think
I
it's-
asked that at the last meeting, and
But
everyone
you
was
did-
saying, we're not sure
Okay.
who owns it.
Okay, let me finally say this, because I had practical experience. Julie formulated our website. And when she left, her contract was voided because she became a member of city council and ran for city council. There was a seamless transition to a new webmaster and the domain owned by the city. It seems to me that she has the expertise and first-hand knowledge of what occurred. I mean, I don't think anybody else can answer the question, quite frankly. That's all I'm saying. It seemed to me that we would get this over that way.
And all
We
I'm
would
saying
know.
is give me the questions in writing that you want asked. And I'll
I
get
don't
the
want
answer.
any questions asked.
Well, you don't.
I'm just asking you to ask somebody who may
He
know.
does, and she's working on one, instead of just saying, what
I
is
think,
it?
Mr. Chairman, as you say, I think you're afraid of the answer, and I don't know why.
There's no fear of the answer. There's no clarity to the question, is what I'm saying.
That's it.
Mr. Director, go ahead.
I believe the council does want me to contact her, and I will. The only question that I have tonight is, does anyone here know the username and password for the domain? Just a yes or no.
Could you repeat the question? What was the question?
Could you repeat that, Carol?
Yeah, I'm asking if, I assume that we know the username and password for the website because things were posted onto the website. Does anyone know the username and password for the domain?
If you're asking me.
Okay, so it's safe to assume the answer is no. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Director, is there anything else under your report? We're still under your report.
No, and I had indicated that I had finished subject to questions, so I assume no one else has any other questions.
I will ask them, so thank you. Counsel, do you have any other questions to the law director about her report or anything? Counsel doesn't, but Ms. Director, I actually have a question. I'm not sure how many parts it has. It may have two parts or not. It deals with some recent activity, and I've talked to some people that have backgrounds in the public records law. And I at the beginning of my term, I attended the training on the Public Records and the Open Meetings Act that's given by the Attorney General's office. I've had some conversations during that period of time, and based on the information that's been provided me, I strongly believe that when I was requested to get information, when a resident came up to me and verbally made a request to me to ask for public records that you had referenced earlier in your report, that I had an obligation to forward that request to both you and the mayor, and that if I failed to comply with that verbal request, that I might have been exposing the city to a mandamus action or some sort of complaint with the Attorney General's office. Now, since I've done that, first off, one of the questions I'd have is, do you agree that I had an obligation and a duty to forward the request to both you and the mayor that said, I've been asked by a resident to submit this request. That resident wished to remain anonymous, did not want to expose themselves to any of the pressures or activities that would come, so they came to me and asked for anonymity. And they said, here's the information I want, would you put in that request? I put that request forward to you and to the mayor, and because I felt I had an obligation and a duty to do that. I'm a public official, somebody asked me for it, I'm forwarding it to you guys. Do you agree that I had that obligation to do that?
I believe you could have satisfied that obligation in one of two ways. One would be to refer it to the legal department, the mayor's office. The other would be to direct the anonymous person to the legal department. I think we have on file the records request forms, and just simply have that individual go ahead on their own and make their own records request. So I don't think anybody is talking about that issue per se. I think the problem is it is such a large and huge request, it is truly burdensome.
But you don't think anyone's talking about that? You didn't watch the channel news report saying that I was requesting the information, that it was misconstrued? You're not aware that the mayor sent letters to the people that this person was asking about, when actually the request was officially made for the public officials' activities, not for the private residents? You don't, but my question is.
Okay,
I understand.
let me
Hold on,
give you
hold on
my
a second.
answer.
Let me clarify it a little bit, because your answer was that I could have taken other actions. My question was, I took the action that I took. Do you feel like that was an improper action? Not that you would have done it differently, but when somebody came to me and asked me for information and says, look, I want to remain anonymous, I don't want to put my name out there, but I want you to get this information for me, and I just forwarded that request to both you and the mayor, are you saying that that I acted improperly? That I should have just told them to do it some other way?
I think there's probably a better way to do it, which would have been to forward it to the legal department. Obviously, your duties are legislative and not administrative. I have no way of gauging or measuring this from a political standpoint. I'm answering your question from a legal standpoint. And what I'm saying is, if I were in your position and I got a request like that, I probably would have said, okay, here's the legal department, here's their phone number, here's their email address, contact them. So, I guess what you're asking me is you want me to give you some sort of dispensation for forwarding the records request to the mayor and to myself, and I don't think that actually is my job or my office. I don't think that's something that is legal. I think probably the better way would have been for you to just forward it to the legal department. I'm not blaming you for acting in the manner that you did, but what I'm telling you is I'm giving a legal answer, and I'm unable to give you an answer that would have political connotations. So I hope that answers your question. It's not my intention to politicize this. I just want to have it handled in an appropriate manner and move forward. I understand that it certainly has caused some upset in the community, and what I'd like to do is make sure that I get out an opinion as soon as possible, and that anyone who wants to have access to that opinion can obtain it from the law department. But I think you're asking me a political question, not a legal question. And
I don't think
you
so.
chose, well, you chose to use the format that you did. I think the better format would have been to refer
What
it.
if the person, that's the format that they wanted me to ask? You're saying I should have directed them to your office. You're saying I should have had them fill out a form. What if they didn't want to do that? What if they asked me to do it in the exact way that I did it?
Again, I think
Would it have been improper of me to ignore that request and say, I can't do that for you? And would that have exposed us to some liability, because that person could have said, I've asked for public records, you're refusing to do it?
I can't imagine it would expose you to liability if you referred them to the proper channel. As I indicated, your duties would be legislative, not administrative. If you refer them to the legal department, I don't see how they could possibly have any cause for complaint. They could continue to remain anonymous. We often have those requests.
Doesn't the Public Records Act say we can't set conditions on how they ask for it? We can't set conditions on how they ask for it. We can't ask for what they intend to use it for. That's my understanding. That's the two criteria. I can't tell somebody how to ask for public records, and if they say this is how I want it, and I want you to do that, you're saying, well, I should refer them to the law department when they're saying they don't want to do it that way.
So
I
you're
can't-
saying if I understand you correctly, if someone calls up the service department and they say, I want public records from the mayor and the law department and the director of human resources, and I want you, service department, to get me these records, that a referral to the proper channels somehow would be something that the Public Records Act would not allow?
I'm saying you can't set a condition that says that's the only way you're going to get it.
Well, I don't think you're setting a
You're not
condition.
answering my question. If the
Oh, yes, I am.
No, if the person said, I don't want you to refer me to the law department, I don't want you to refer me to the mayor, this is how I want you to submit the request, and that's how I did it, I don't get to set a condition and say, you can't do it that way, here's how I want you to do it. You're saying you wouldn't have handled it that way. That has me concerned, that you're going to set conditions on how people ask for public records.
I think when they're talking about conditions, they're talking about, do you want to email? Do you want it snail mail? You know, how do you want us to deliver whatever it is that we're giving to you? I don't believe that they're talking about what department has to deliver the records. Again, the service department, if someone has a request to fix the street, they go to the service department. If somebody has a request for records, then they would go to the law department or the city, and I think it would have been entirely appropriate for you to refer them there. You're right, we can't say, well, we're giving this to you via email, or we're giving this to you in some other format. We have the right to charge them a fee for that. But I certainly had never thought of that as an issue, that you can randomly pick out someone in a city and request that they fulfill your records request rather than going through the appropriate department to do so.
Mr. Chairman, point of information.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Every request, and you're correct, in every request for discovery or for public records by any division in the city is sent to the law department to make sure we comply with the law, just as you said. So that's the procedure. So you could send it to me, they could send it to you, I send it to the law department. Okay, are these public records? And we're not required to create a record either.
Correct.
Okay, so I send it to the law department to determine, are these public records, what they're requesting for, blah, 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 blah. And we should also make the people aware that maybe the format that they requested in, we can't provide. And therefore, do they want to narrow it down, or they want to change their request? So all of that is done by the law department so that we don't have any layperson, so to speak, determining how we comply with the law.
And I'm saying that I believe that if a resident happened to walk into City Hall over there, nobody was at the front desk, and they left a Post-it note on that front desk saying that they wanted these records and they'll be back the end of next week to pick them up, when that clerk comes to the window and sees that, she has an obligation to turn that in to the law department.
And that's what she would do.
And that's what I did. Somebody put in an anonymous complaint to me, not a complaint, an anonymous request for records, and I turned it into the law department and to your office, and I'm asking, did I do anything wrong here? And all I'm getting from the law director is, you should have handled it a different way. I couldn't handle it a different way. I handled it the way that was requested of me.
If I may, Council President, this goes back to my original remarks where I said there were two ways that it could have been fulfilled, and I'm not sure exactly what answer you're looking for other than a legal answer, but if there are other issues that have nothing to do with the actual request, outside issues in the community, that's not something that I'm going to give you a yes or no on. Right now, this request is here in the law department, and we'll handle it. And if the anonymous person wishes to contact the law department, they have a number of methods where they could do so. I mean, eventually, sooner or later, the request would end up on the law department's desk. And we actually do get a number of these requests where people do remain anonymous. Most of them we receive through email, where, it's an email, they don't identify themselves. You certainly can't tell who the owner of the email is, and usually we go ahead and answer them. They're usually not as broad as this request. It would be something maybe, how many building permits did you issue in a 6-month period, or something along that. Certainly there could have been a snail mail request that would be directed to a post office box or something along that line. What I'm saying is, I guess I'm not sure why you feel it's necessary to cross-examine the legal department about this issue. I mean, yes, this will get
I love your
fulfilled,
use
that's
of
fine.
terms. It's questions to the law department. I asked you a question. I'm asking.
I would submit
The
you've gone beyond
cross-examination
that.
usually comes from Councilman Scott with the interrogation questions.
Well, I would say we've probably exhausted this issue, at least from the legal department standpoint, and we have the request now, and we'll handle it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I will just take a minute here, continue on this. Madam Law Director, in the last 4 years, have you gone to the Sunshine Laws training?
Actually, it's interesting you would ask that question, because over the weekend, I looked at my Supreme Court transcript for the number of hours that I need to complete before the end of the year. Looks like I need a half an hour of continuing legal education, and on my transcript is, I believe, 3 hours attributed to the course that I took out at Lorraine Community College. So yes, I did, sir.
When did you take it?
It would have been in 2016 if it's on my transcript now.
Okay, so, and has anybody else here took the training for the Sunshine Laws? You have? Yeah. This year? Yes. Okay.
Took it in 2016.
Now, now, it may have changed, and let me know if it did, because you're most recent. But when I took this, and I was really surprised about this exact fact, and I took it in, 14, over in Westlake at the rec center, nice rec center. And I remember him saying, because I was really like, really, it's that extreme, that when anybody asks you for information, you have to supply it within a reasonable amount of time. Now, you can ask them, hey, is it okay, can you just go to the clerk, or you can go here and get it, is that sufficient? And they can say yes, and you can direct them, and they can say, yes, that's okay with me. But if they say, no, I want you to anonymously get it for me, you have to do that. And I remember that. It's the biggest thing I remember from that training, because I was really surprised that I would have to go through that to get that information if that's the way they wanted it. So that was a training in 14. If that's changed, if somebody's got information where that's changed, I'd like to know that. But that was the information I got at the time, and that was a training that we received. It was when I got that training with Cleveland State.
There's actually a training September 21st coming up that I was planning on going to. But I can't quote it right now, but I was under the impression that everyone had to do it every year. Somewhere.
No.
I'll find it.
No, what it is somebody from council should do it every year and relate it back to the rest of council. And that's what I did in 14, and Jim did, I guess, last year 16. So that's how that works. So I'm just, that was the training, that was the information I got, and the point is that if you can convince that person requesting that information to, if they're okay with going to the source where it's at and doing it that way, that's fine. But if they say, no, that's not the way I want to do it, I'm asking you for it, you have to get it for them. That's the way it works. Thank you.
Thank you for recognizing
Councilman
me.
Mancini, I'm sorry.
I did not go to training, but I can remember in 213 coming in, and I don't belabor this because I might be close with my 1159, that rest her soul, Councilwoman Spina, ex-council, and Mr. Bernath, Councilman Salvatore told me, Jimmy, get the council rules, get the sunshine laws, and definitely, number one, hit that charter and read them again. Now, do I have them all memorized? I don't, but I did read through it. My point on it is you say gather the information. Now, I want to move on with this meeting, but what if I put in a request to say, through City Hall, a records request, I want the name of everybody who ever lived in Brook Park. From the day we became a city to today. I want the name of everybody living in Brook Park. Isn't that kind of like, kind of a lot, isn't it? I mean, thank you.
Councilman Troyer?
I think I can actually, thank you, Mr. Council President.
What, how many, everybody
Basically,
in Brook Park?
generally, it has to be an existing list. It has to be an existing document, generally. I mean, when council asks for information, it'd be nice to get it.
Generally, or?
Even though
Councilman, please.
even though the,
I'm sorry.
it's not an existing list or an existing publication or whatever, it's not compiled yet, it'd be nice for council to be able to get that information. But a regular resident, you can't just go ask for something that doesn't exist, generally speaking.
Okay, Jim?
Mr. Director, would you like to?
Thank you. I was under the impression that as you begin your term of office, that's when you renew. So with each reelection of someone, then you would go back, whatever your term is, 2 or 4 years or whatever. And certainly it's always good to go back biannually because things change. I just wanted to note, and I had sent an email to all of council, that I had requested the council president to advise the requester to contact me directly, that, obviously we didn't want him to identify him or herself if they didn't want to, but there would have to be some procedures that we would have to use to work through how best to narrow this records request, because it is quite broad and there are other issues along with it. So I just wanted to refer everyone to the email that I had sent back on the 29th. Thank you.
Any other questions of the Law Director? Seeing none, we'll move to the Finance Director, Mr. Single.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Monthly reports for August will be distributed shortly. As always, if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call. Mr. Chairman, members of council, and the viewing public, the audit has been released by the State Auditor's Office, and therefore the CAFR is online and is also at the printer. So we hope to get hard copies back here within the next couple of weeks. But the comprehensive annual financial report for the year ended December 31st, 2016 is online. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I'm working with the mayor on finalizing the appropriation change ordinance. The mayor's working on some final capital items, and as soon as we get the numbers that we need to finalize the report, we'll be forwarding that to City Council here in the near future. And that concludes my report tonight.
Those changes you said, did you say in the near future? Or?
Yes, sir, in the near
Okay,
future.
thank you. Council, are there any questions of the Finance Director? Mr. Single, go ahead, Mr. Troyer.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Council President. Through the chair to the Finance Director, Mr. Single, you're going to amend the capital. You can also amend the general fund too. We're going to have to amend that because of the healthcare with the fire, that ruling, the police ruling, and of course, I don't know about the Me Too, if that's going to come along. So we're going to have to amend the general fund on that, all that stuff too, or do we leave enough in there?
Through the chair, Councilman Troyer, we will have to amend the general fund by the end of the year. This first appropriation change ordinance was going to be capital only. So again, once we get that together,
okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We'll finalize that and bring it forth to council here in the near future.
Okay, I'd prefer to have everything changed as the need be as we go along. So we have the money appropriated in the right place as soon as we know where it needs to go. That's always been my opinion. We passed a budget after the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter, and I really think we should be updating it every quarter. But that's my opinion, and that's it. Thank you.
Council, any other questions of the Finance Director? Mr. Single, I have one question. I don't know if you were listening during the mayor's report. I'm sure you were. But the mayor's report, shortly after he asked the question, he said he'd asked the question, what kind of city do you want to live in? His statement was words to the effect that when he left office in 2002, the general fund balance was $9.8 million. And when he came back In 2014, the general fund balance was $2 million. Again, when I refer to the CAFR, and you and I have had this discussion in previous meetings, that actually the general fund balance at the end of 2013, according to CAFR, is $5.47 million. You know, which one is it? Is it the 5.47 or is it the $2 million that the mayor's talking about?
Okay, the mayor was referring to, as I gave him the figures, he was referring to the general fund. He was looking at a cash basis report versus looking at the CAFR, which would be under the, depending on what report you're looking at in the CAFR or which statement you're looking at, could be under modified accrual basis of accounting. So the mayor was looking at the fund balance reports as of the beginning of January of 2002 and as of the beginning of January of 2014. He was only looking at the general fund and the CAFR, as we've talked about, Mr. Chairman. The auditors will bring forth other funds into the general fund, some being the concession stand funds. So the mayor was just looking at one fund, not a consolidation of numerous funds as reported in the CAFR.
So like if there's money in the city income tax fund, if there's money in the admissions tax fund, if there's money in the hotel motel tax fund, that would go to the general fund, it hasn't gone there yet, so he wasn't talking about that.
Yeah, we weren't looking at it rolled up into, as is reported in the CAFR. This was just strictly cash basis, the reports the council gets and the administration and the mayor gets. We were looking at those fund balance reports. I think the number starting in 2014, it might be around 2.6 million, if I remember right.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes the items under letter I. We'll move to letter J, which are other communications and petitions and verbal approval and introduction of new legislation. We'll go to item number 1 under verbal approval. We have an amendment to Council Rule number 3.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
There's been a motion to adopt. It's been properly supported. Is there any discussion on adoption? Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I would be a no on this tonight because I believe it's going to create issues with council. So I'm not going to over-discuss this, but that's it. I just want to make that statement.
Councilwoman Powers?
That means we will be changing our council meeting time till 7:30 p.m. If we're going to change the meeting time at all, I want to change it into 11 p.m. Because, as Mr. Peterlin said, we should be able to get this done in an hour, and if somebody needs to go home and take a nap after work in order to get here, then let them do that. But let's have a meeting at 11 o'clock at night. That way we don't have to waste all this time in here listening to nonsense.
Audience, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion to adopt the amendment to Council Rule number 3? Seeing no other discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Powers,
No.
No.
Troyer. 5-2.
The amendment to Council Rule number 3 is passed. We'll move to item number 2, which is the amendment to Council Rule number 5.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
And a motion to adopt. It's been properly supported. Is there discussion under adoption? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Troyer,
No.
Powers,
No.
McDonald,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
5-2.
The amendment to Council Rule number 5 passes. That concludes the items under verbal approval. We'll go to introduction of new legislation. We have an ordinance that's been introduced by Mayor Coyne that will authorize the consulting engineer to prepare an application to participate in the 2018 Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement Program, dealing with the Holland Road reconstruction project and declaring an emergency. We'll place this in the Service Committee. We have another ordinance introduced by Mayor Coyne. It's a resolution authorizing the mayor to prepare and submit an application for the 2018 Public Works Commission to execute contracts as required, dealing with, I believe this is the Holland Road construction project also. It's a companion piece that goes along with the ordinance. We will place this also in the Service Committee. And then we have, this is a resolution that's being introduced by council as a whole. It's being introduced under Council Rule 12, so this will be moved to the first reading. Introduction under letter M, it'll be under M2. This is a resolution proclaiming the city of Brook Park a tolerant and diverse community. As I said, it'll be assigned to the legislative committee. It will show up on our agenda under M2, under the Rule 12 that allows us to move it there. It'll be resolution number 21-2017. Does anyone else have legislation that's to be introduced tonight? Okay, seeing no one coming forward with legislation, that completes items under letter J. That we have no items under letter K, so we'll go to letter L, which is remarks from the audience on the ordinances and/or resolutions that pertain to items on the agenda. On tonight's agenda, we have 3 items. The first one is on first reading. We have an ordinance that authorizes the mayor to enter into an agreement for the purchase of a tractor with cab for the service department. And then we have a resolution that I just talked about and was introduced that's been moved to item number 2 under first reading, declaring Brook Park a tolerant community. And on third reading, we have an ordinance that authorizes the mayor to enter into a contract for the purchase of 4 SUVs for the police department. Those are the 3 items that are on the agenda. If anyone wants to come to the podium and speak to us about any one of those 3 items, the time would be now to come forward. Okay, seeing no one coming forward, we will move to letter M, introduction of ordinances and resolutions on first reading. We'll go to item number 1, which is ordinance number 10,095-2017.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with Akron Tractor and Equipment Incorporated for the acquisition of 1 Kubota excavator with trade-in of 1 2014 New Holland TS 6.110 tractor with cab, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Councilman Troyer,
if I may ask the Service Director a question
go ahead.
on this. Thank you. Through the chair to the Service Director. Mr. Cat, we could probably use this real quick. Is this something we need right away versus the one we have,
We don't have one.
or the trade-in?
Ask your question again, sir?
The unit we're trading in,
Yes?
it's better to have this new unit faster than later?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to suspend on this.
Support.
Been a motion to suspend. It's been properly supported. Is there a discussion on suspension? On suspension, Councilwoman?
No, I wanted to discuss, I had something I wanted to discuss, and it got moved too fast.
Okay.
Mr. President, I will withdraw my motion if the second will be withdrawn, so you could have your time to speak.
Withdraw my motion.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so there's no motion before now, so Councilwoman Powers,
Thank you, Mr. President.
could you please speak into the microphone so we can hear you too?
I just wanted to know why we're trading in a 3-year-old piece of equipment. If we don't need it now, what was so important that we needed it 3 years ago? And it must be a much better piece of equipment than what we're buying, because its trade-in value is paying the full cost of something we're buying new. So why are we trading in something that we only use for 3 years?
Mr. Chairman,
Is that what you had to, are you done, Mrs. Powers?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
we had, at the caucus meeting, we told you we had a new vehicle that will go in, and do the inclines and go into the retention basins and do Ingle Road. We bought that last year for $20-some thousand. It more or less rendered this other piece of equipment useless. We do need a track backhoe to go in and do some of the dig jobs that we have to do. So it presented itself for Acton Tractor needed this vehicle, and we sent you the appraisals on it, and they're selling right now a comparable one, even with the attachments, for about $75,000. We're swapping that. We're also getting a trailer attachment bucket. So the bottom line is that this vehicle the new one we got last year is better than this one, and we need the backhoe. So we're trading this vehicle for that backhoe. So that's what it is.
So this machine is going to work better than our old machine that was bigger and
Yes, 'cause-
heavier and could
because
handle
they're
more
two-
work?
They're for two different uses. This tractor that we're swapping, is the best way to say, is a grass cutting machine. We've got a better one that'll work better than this. This was awkward to operate for our people, and it couldn't do all of the work. It could do some of the work. The new tractor that we got last year could do all of the work. We need a new backhoe. So it would be that this vehicle would probably be sitting there with not a lot of use, and we need the backhoe for our dig jobs. So we're trading it in at a fair value that we think, and we're getting a piece of equipment that we need that was more versatile and will provide a need that for primarily dig jobs in people's front yards. It's a smaller, quieter, more effective machine. Okay. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Councilman Bergio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, we went over this at the caucus, and I think we thoroughly discussed this. Again, I think that we all had our questions answered, and I think that I don't see whether there's any other question to be asked on this. So I make a motion to suspend.
Support. Well, thanks for taking that from me.
I was afraid you might
Chairman,
not.
I don't think it matters.
Mr.
I
Chairman.
don't think it matters who owns the motion
it
to
doesn't.
suspend.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask the chair for a point of personal privilege to allow Mr. Troyer's motion to suspend?
No,
I asked the colleagues to do that.
It doesn't
Because
matter.
it's such a rare
It just becomes.
occasion.
I will remove my
It
support,
becomes-
and I'll give it to Mr.
becomes
Troyer.
10:30 and people get a little slap happy about
Okay.
that, so let's not worry about who made the motion. to
Tom, I
suspend.
tried.
Yeah.
So there's a motion to suspend, it's been properly supported. I'm not sure if the clerk knows who did what first, but
I got
she'll
it.
call the roll, please.
Bergio,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Powers, Troyer.
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Suspension's been approved.
Move to adopt.
What's
Support.
the number on that? Is it 7-0? Was it 7-0?
I'm sorry?
that was 7.
It's okay,
Vote of
thank you.
7.
7-0, yes.
I'm making notes.
Thank you, everyone.
There's been a motion to adopt, it's been properly supported. Is there discussion on adoption? Seeing Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Yeah, I just like to I'd like to state that I appreciate getting that information that we asked for last time this was up. It made my decision, made me able to do my due diligence and get the information I needed to do this. So I appreciate that, and that's why I'm suspending today. Thank you.
Any other discussion on adoption? Seeing no other discussion, clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mancini,
Yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
it's adopted.
Ordinance number 10,095-2017 has been adopted under suspension of the rules. We'll move to item number 2, which is resolution number 21-2017. And since it was just introduced tonight, we will have the clerk read the resolution in its entirety.
Introduced by council as a whole, proclaiming the city of Brook Park a tolerant and diverse community. Whereas in the preamble of the charter of the city of Brook Park, Ohio, we, the residents of Brook Park, express our gratefulness for freedom and acknowledge our rights and responsibilities as citizens under the Constitution and laws of the state of Ohio. And whereas in the preamble of the Constitution of the state of Ohio, do we, the residents of the state of Ohio, thank Almighty God for our freedom to secure its blessings and promote our common welfare. And whereas the city of Brook Park is a self-governing municipality operating pursuant to its charter and the laws of Ohio, recognizes and embraces its responsibility to promote equality for all its citizens and visitors. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Brook Park, State of Ohio, that Section 1, the mayor and city council would like to proclaim the City of Brook Park The mayor and city council would like to proclaim the City of Brook Park rejects racism and bigotry in all its forms and expressions. The City of Brook Park reiterates its commitment to the values, laws, and programs honoring the inherent worth of all people, regardless of race, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. The City of Brook Park will continue to honor its responsibility to promote tolerance, non-discrimination, and diversity within our community. Section 2, it is found and determined that all formal actions of this council concerning and relating to this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and any of its committees that result in such formal actions were in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, this resolution is necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and welfare of said city, and for further reason of declaring the City of Brook Park as a tolerant and diverse community. Therefore, this resolution shall take effect and be enforced immediately from and after its passage and approval by the mayor.
Move to suspend.
Support.
There's a motion to suspend. It's been properly supported. Any discussion on suspension? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on suspension.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Powers? Troyer?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Move to
Suspension.
adopt.
Suspension's been approved.
To adopt.
Support.
The motion to adopt, it's been properly supported. Discussion on adoption? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on adoption.
Mancini?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Resolution number 21-2017 has been adopted under suspension of the rules. That completes the items under letter M. We have no items under letter N, so we'll move to letter O, which is third reading of ordinances and resolutions.
Mr. President,
Go ahead, Councilman.
if you would for a moment. Again, I'd like to mention that the law director has ruled that, even though I don't agree, and I'm waiting for, the Ethics Committee has not ruled on this. So because of the law director ruling that there's a conflict, that somehow I'd be voting in favor of police issues to garner a favorable testimony from our police officers. Because of that ruling, I have to abstain from this and recuse myself. And I will be doing that at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 1 is ordinance number 10,092-2017.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing the mayor to enter in a contract with Bob Gillingham Ford for the purchase of 4 new 2017 Ford Utility Interceptor SUVs and declaring an emergency.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
Been a motion to adopt. It's been properly supported. Is there discussion on adoption? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on adoption.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Powers?
No.
McDonald?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
5-1.
Ordinance number 10,092-2017 has been adopted. That concludes the items under third reading of ordinance and resolutions. We've already addressed the remarks from the audience on any subject matter on letter P. So right now, council at this time, is Councilman Troyer.
Let's count.
Anyway, council at this time, I take a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of personnel matters, compensation of a council office public employee.
Motion so made.
Support.
Been a motion made to go into executive session. It's been properly supported. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
session?
Yes to executive session.
Troyer?
Yes.
Salvatore? Perugio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Okay, at 10:31, we are going into executive session to deal with the compensation of a council office public employee.
Okay, that's fine, Mayor.
6-0. 6-0.
I'll get it out.
Thanks. Good night.
Who did what? McDonald. Five to one.
That's it. You know what's happened, there should be none whatsoever. We, what